Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. This is story about what if Naruto has Fox Bloodline Part 1. Before I start, please do support for more amazing content and comments for Part 2. Do consider to subscribe my channel and share my video to your friends and check out the description as well. Let's start the video. Konoha, or the village hidden in the leaves. If you were to ask the people that live in this village, they would tell you that it is one of the most peaceful and bright. Overall, a nice place to live. But like anywhere else in the world, there is always a dark side. The problem is that people tend not to see it, ignore it, or they are part of it. Naruto, a boy of 8, was on his way home from a walk that he felt like he wanted since there wasn't much else he could do. He usually went for walks through the village when there weren't that many people. This usually meant that he could only go on them when it was extremely early or very late at night. This was the latter of the two. He was looking forward to getting home and going to bed, since that meant he would meet the only other being who actually cared about him. A massive fox that went by the name Kurama. He didn't know when he started dreaming about this fox or where he got the idea, but he was always happy when he had those dreams. At least he thought they were dreams. Naruto had actually met the fox when he was only 7 months old, when his caretakers at the orphanage left him in his crib for a day and ignored his cries since he was the only one in the room they left him in. During this time, he unknowingly tapped into Kyuubi's power and slipped into his mindscape. Flashback. He woke up in his mindscape, which was just a dark, barren room, except for the massive cage with a paper tag with the word "CO" written on it attached to the center of the gate. Not liking the hard floor, Naruto began to cry, and it is this crying that woke up the sleeping demon fox. What is making that annoying sound? The booming voice made Naruto stop crying for a second before he started again, much to the fox's annoyance. Kurama, the Kyuubi no Kitsune, lifted his head and turned to look at the other side of the gate, and spotted Naruto on the ground crying. Kurama was dumbstruck because he could not believe that his container was this little meat bag on the floor and was crying nonstop. This is what I, the great Kyuubi, was sealed into. This weak crying child. The insult that bastard Yondaime gives me. If he wasn't dead already, I would kill him. All the yelling was able to quiet the baby, but he was now trembling from fear, even though he did not know it yet. Finally decided to stop that annoying racket, did you? Kurama said as he took a closer look at Naruto. He could feel the fear that the baby had, but knew it was from his yelling and not from him being a demon. If I kill him now, I could be free from this prison and find that mask-wearing Uchiha and tear him apart, thought the Kyuubi, but he decided not to do this. Despite being a demon, he was not evil. He would not do such a despicable act even if it meant his freedom, too. Seeing the trembling baby, the Kyuubi moved one of his 9 tails to pick him up and bring him close to get a better look. Such a tiny little speck, he said as he looked at Naruto. Naruto himself stopped trembling, stared at the fox's muzzle, and being so close to it, started slapping his nose and giggling. Kurama just stared at the giggling baby and smiled, showing his sharp fangs, which just gave Naruto something else to slap. No fear or hatred. Just a blank slate and giggles. Kurama stated with a chuckle as he laid his head on his hands/paws as well as lowered the tail, holding Naruto down next to his head. As he closed his eyes to sleep, he could feel Naruto begin to wiggle a bit before stopping and yawned cutely, signifying that he was seconds away from sleeping. Cracking open an eye, he saw that Naruto had fallen asleep on his tail. Knowing that Naruto would soon be leaving the mindscape, he himself started to drift to sleep. He might not be so bad if he stayed this small and quiet. Flashback end. That was just the first time Naruto interacted with the fox. Since Naruto had no idea how to enter the mindscape, he would randomly just enter without warning, but all of them were when he went to sleep in the room at the orphanage. He would fall asleep on his bed and immediately wake up in his mindscape. As he grew, he came to love appearing in there and meeting with the fox, who he soon began to play with. After the first 2 years, Kurama grew so fond of the child that he considered Naruto his kid. He even took it upon himself to teach the boy simple things such as speaking. Kurama rather enjoyed the time he spent with Naruto, letting the boy play with his tails, talk about whatever they could, and comfort the boy when he was sad. As he grew closer to the boy, he could not help but regret what his actions had caused to the boy. He wished with everything he had that he wasn't responsible for how Naruto's life was, with people chasing him, beating him, tormenting him, and not seeing him as what he truly was, a kind, gentle boy looking for someone to acknowledge him. Naruto, for his part, started to see the fox as an imaginary father figure, since the only time he saw Kurama was when he fell asleep. He would enjoy his time talking to Kurama, playing with Kurama, and having someone close to him, but he always thought that it was just his imagination manifesting what he always wanted in the form of his favorite animal. When Naruto was 4, he had told the Sandaime, Hiruzen Sarutobi, about his interactions with the fox, much to the old man's shock. The old man nearly had a heart attack from hearing how that the boy talked to it, even playing with the massive demon. After composing himself, Hiruzen had told Naruto never to trust anything the fox tells him. This confused the boy, who wondered what was the problem with playing with his friend, but in his naivete, he nodded his head. Naruto had agreed to what Hiruzen said, but since his attention span was very minimal, he forgot about it that night when he was using Kurama's tail as a makeshift slide, much to Kurama's amusement. As time went on, Naruto grew even closer to Kurama, which was the highlight of every single day. To go to bed so he could fall asleep to meet up with Kurama. They were so close that even Naruto's first word was an attempted saying of his name, Rama, even if Naruto didn't remember that, Kurama did. As Naruto thought about meeting Kurama again, his smile grew even more and he began to run home so he could get there faster. Unfortunately, Naruto didn't know that he was being followed by someone that had malicious intentions. Naruto ran as fast as his little feet could take him, whining to himself. Why did I walk so far? I should have gone to the playground instead. He was glad that no one was out at this time of night, since he wouldn't have to deal with the glares and whispers. The people may have thought that they were being subtle, but this was not the case. As Naruto ran past an alley, he felt someone grab him by the back of his shirt before he was thrown into the said alley. He impacted the wall hard, causing the world to go blurry and blood to begin dripping down the back of his head. Through blurry vision, he looked up to see that he was surrounded by a group of people. From what he could see, some of them were kids older than him, and an adult. He shook his head to try and regain his vision, but he was suddenly kicked in the head hard enough to cause spots to begin to show. The group of attackers was a group of genin, some looking like they just were made genin, a few older ones, and a chunin. The chunin had met up with this group of 7 genins, and told them that he was going to teach them how to take on a monster. The younger genin felt some reluctance about going against a monster, but the chunin had met up with the parents, and told them exactly who they were going to be attacking. The parents couldn't say yes faster. The parents encouraged the genin that what they were doing was extremely important to the village. It didn't help that the older ones had bullied the blonde at the insistence of their parents, and their own misconception of the boy being the reason someone they knew was dead. One of the younger ones, a boy with brown hair, looked at the chunin. Hey, what are you going to teach us? He asked as the older genin were kicking the down blonde. The chunin, who was leaning against the wall at the entrance of the alley, smirked at the boy. I'm going to teach you how to kill a monster. This caused some of them to stop for a minute, but it didn't last long when they remembered that this was the village monster that their parents and teachers have told them about. The chunin pushed off the wall and moved closer to them. Now, did you all bring your kunai and wires? The genin nodded their heads at the chunin's question. The chunin smiled almost maliciously as he began. Good. Now the first thing you should do is tie up its arms and legs. Naruto had heard what the man was telling the genin, and he tried to crawl away since the genin were all looking at the man. He wasn't as stealthy as he had hoped since he was struck in the leg by a kunai. Aya! He held his leg as he looked at the back of it to see a shuriken sticking out of it. Don't think you can get away. The chunin tried to keep the malice from his voice, but a bit of it was noticeable to the blonde. He looked to the genin and motioned his head to the now bleeding boy. Well, go on. Tie him up. Naruto tried to get to his feet and limp away, but he found himself falling back to the ground when one of the kids swept his feet from under him. He tried to get away from the laughing older kids, but they were stronger than him, and he was outnumbered. He soon found himself tied up in sharp ninja wire that was tied too tight as they were cutting into his skin. Good, now he grabbed Naruto by the hair and lifted him in the air. He couldn't help himself as he punched the boy in the stomach hard, causing Naruto to cough up a bit of blood. Once that was done, he stabbed a kunai into the wall and hung the boy by the wire that was around Naruto's wrists. Naruto tried to regain his breath from the punch, but it became harder when he felt a rag being shoved into his mouth. The chunin finished gagging Naruto before he pulled out another kunai and looked to the genin. Now, before we get to the actual lesson, we will be having some target practice. The genin looked confused at this but listened to their superior. Now you are going to learn to hit vital points on a monster, but to make things easier for you, I will mark the spots that will make it easier to kill monsters. The first spot is he lifted his kunai and stabbed Naruto in the leg. Here. He pulled the kunai out before stabbing the other leg. Here. In the right foot. Here. In his hands. Here. To finish it off, he didn't stab the boy. Instead, he ripped off Naruto's shirt and used the bloody kunai to cut a circle with an X in the center just where Naruto's heart was in here. You must aim for these spots before you can kill a monster. Naruto's screams of pain were muffled by the rag, and he could do nothing but flinch in pain and cry. He felt his world spin as he began to feel nauseous, and he began to internally beg for help. Hokage Gigi Rama-san, help please. Kurama snapped his eyes open at the boy's mental pleas for help. Lifting his head up, he began to see through Naruto's immediate thoughts, and saw what was happening to his kid at that very moment. Shit. What do you shitty brats think you're doing? Don't you dare hurt my kit! Damn it! What the hell is that stupid monkey doing? When you actually need that old fossil, he isn't around. He screamed as he rammed into the gate over and over again. After a few seconds, he decided to pour his chakra into Naruto, hoping to heal the wounds already on the boy's body. The kids didn't feel bad for the boy since they were used to beating up the boy, and every time they did, they were praised by their parents. It was also not the first time that they had seen Naruto bleed excessively, since they had seen some of the adults do things similar to the blonde before. The Chunin then moved behind the kids as he spoke. Okay, ready your kunai. The kids nodded as they all pulled out their weapons. Naruto tried to wiggle his way out of the binds, but the more he struggled, the deeper the wires cut into his wrists and ankles. Take aim. Naruto looked up to see the other kids were ready to throw. Fire! The Chunin grinned wickedly at the hanging boy. Naruto closed his eyes as he saw the kunai fly at him. He grunted in pain when he felt the piercing of his flesh from the metal weapons. He wanted to run, get away from everything, and to hide from the mean people, but he couldn't. After 15 minutes, the kids stopped, as they had run out of kunai and shuriken. They would have picked them up, but almost all of them were covered in blood. Naruto was covered head to toe with cuts, holes, and blood. His breathing was ragged and he could not see from one of his eyes as a shuriken cut it as he tried to avoid it. He was fortunate enough that the genin were not masters at aiming, since they missed many times, and he was not hit in anything vital. The Chunin sneered at the fact that the kids missed the vital points, but he shrugged his shoulders as he looked at the kids. Well, you didn't kill it, but you made it bleed. Now what? The Chunin stared at Naruto for a second and smirked. Now you go home. He saw that they were about to protest, but he brought up his hand. You did well. You wounded a monster a lot, so I will inform all your senseis about this. They will reward you when they hear this, and your parents will be proud of you. This caused the genin to smile as they all nodded. Good, now head home. He watched as the kids began to leave with a smile that could be considered proud. But the second he knew they weren't anywhere close to him, his smile became malicious. He turned to the still bleeding boy and started yanking the few kunai that were embedded in the boy harshly. Rotten brats couldn't even kill a tied-up target. The man began to beat the hanging boy. Come on! Let me hear you scream! He began to focus his onslaught on the face as he laughed at the pain he knew he was dealing. Come on! Shout out for help! Let's see if anyone cares. He knew the boy couldn't since he was still gagged, but it was fun to taunt him. Naruto could only whimper now as he was in too much pain. Kurama was working overtime and healing the wounds that littered the boy's body, and thanks to the man who was still beating the boy, he kept getting more wounds to heal. After Naruto's face was barely recognizable, the Chunin smirked at the bloody mess that used to be a cheerful boy. You know, those brats may have made you bleed, but looks like I get the honor of killing you for what you did 8 years ago. He channeled chakra into the kunai and stabbed it into the boy's stomach with the intention of causing the boy to bleed out. With this, you will die slowly and suffer a small fraction of the pain you caused. Although this was said, the Chunin had no noble intentions with his actions. His whole plan was to have the kids beat the Kyuubi brat until he was either an inch from dying or actually died. If the boy was an inch from death, he would finish the boy off, and if he died, it didn't matter. Once either was done, he would take the credit for it and be hailed as a hero. And with the tip he received from an anonymous source, he knew that it was the best chance to do it. What he didn't realize was that the chakra in the kunai caused a disruption in the flow of the Kyuubi's chakra, causing the healing to slow down immensely. Naruto winced in pain from the kunai now in his stomach as he slowly tried to open his right eye, since it was only swollen and not cut. Although it was extremely blurry and filled with black spots. He cried at the pain he was feeling and couldn't think much of anything anymore since all his attention was on the pain. The Chunin noticed the open eye and sneered at him. Oh? Still alive, huh? He smiled as he noticed the ragged breathing and the fountain of blood coming out of the boy's gut. He knew that the boy was not going to live through the amount of fatal wounds the boy had. He grabbed the boy by the hair again, pulled him off the wall, and swung him against the opposite wall again and again. Leaving you here would just leave a mess that no one is going to clean up. So you know what? He brought him to eye level again. I'm leaving your filthy corpse in that shitty apartment, so you can rot. The Chunin then shined away to Naruto's apartment. Outside of Naruto's apartment. Once he arrived at the rundown apartment complex, the Chunin moved to a window that he saw led inside. He then tossed Naruto through it, shattering the window and embedding some glass into the boy's back. You can die there on the floor, but who knows, maybe someone will check up on you and save your life, though who would ever want to check up on you? He said, knowing that no one even lived in the complex anymore since everyone moved out when Naruto was given the apartment by the Sandaime. The man left laughing, ready to celebrate the death of the demon with his friend. Naruto lay there on his side with the kunai still in his stomach, staring blankly at the wall as the tears and blood continued to stream down his face. He began to lose the color in his face as he began to feel cold. His eyes were slowly losing the light in them, becoming dull and lifeless. He barely even registered the voice in his head. Kit? Answer me, Kit! Come on, Kit, hold on. Don't you dare give up. You said you would become the Hokage for this stupid village. Kurama screamed as he kept banging on the cage and released his chakra. Why isn't my chakra healing him? Kurama thought to himself, how can you become Hokage if you give up and die here? Kurama screamed as he slammed himself even harder into the gate, pushing as much chakra into Naruto, trying to heal him, and with a few tears dampening his fur under his eyes. What Naruto said next was something that shocked him because he hadn't been called this until now. Kurame Tu-cha, Naruto said with a smile as the light left his eyes. Naruto. Hiruzen was having a very bad week. Not only was he swamped with meetings with the council, who kept calling him for every little detail between land disputes and financial discussions to what they should have for dinner, the killing intent he was releasing, after that one was so strong that even the shinobi and the Umbu present were having a hard time staying conscious. The civilians didn't last long. He was also riddled with piles of the bane of all Kages, paperwork, so much of it that he hasn't had time to even read his favorite little orange book. He wanted to incinerate the piles just to be done with it, but his sense of responsibility stayed his hand from performing a cat-on jutsu. Well, that, and an Umbu with long purple hair wearing a cat mask stopped him from finishing the hand signs. He did get some sense of satisfaction when he did burn one document, and after the small lecture that he got from Nico about not destroying an important document, he pulled out an exact copy of the document from the pile of finished and signed work. The mountains of paperwork turned out to be multiple copies of the same new pieces of work that was given to him, and he couldn't destroy them because he wouldn't be 100% sure if there wasn't anything really important in the pile, so he had to do it the old-fashioned way by going through each one at a time. I swear, these fools can't do anything other than annoy me with these useless requests. I'm getting too old for this and I need to find a replacement for this. Maybe then I can finally get to read without any problems, Hiruzen mumbled to himself as he continued to stamp another document. He paused for only a moment when he heard a knock from the door. Looking up, he saw it was Inu. Inu was one of his high-ranking Umbu, easily recognized with his white gravity-defying hair. He is always described this way. Pretty good in my opinion. Inu, what can I do for you? Kakashi walked until he was a few feet away. Yes, Hokage-sama. I have returned from my mission and I am ready to give my report on it. When that was heard, the Sandaime was shocked because he didn't assign Inu to any mission. Kakashi, he said, ignoring Umbu protocol. What was this mission, and when did you leave for it? Kakashi looked at the Hokage confused, but it was not visible with the dog mask he was wearing. I left for the mission 8 days ago, and it was a reconnaissance mission in the Heron Bay to make sure that Kyuubi wasn't planning anything against Konoha, though it seemed that everything was quiet and no action was being taken to insinuate such a thing, Kakashi said, giving his report to the now stunned Hokage. This was a mission that the Hokage planned on having an infiltration team take, but was holding off on it since he didn't want to stress the relations between the villages, even more so since it was on thin ice as it was since the attempted kidnapping of the Hyuga heiress Hinata Hyuga. Kakashi, that mission was put on hold and was not meant to be taken. Are you sure that I gave you this mission? Kakashi nodded to the Hokage's question and pulled out the mission scroll that had his signature and stamp of approval. The gears were turning in the old man's head. He had no recollection of assigning this mission to Kakashi since at this time he was supposed to be on guard duty for Naruto to keep him safe from any of the villagers that might harm the boy during the festival, which happened to be his birthday as well, and that was 3 days ago. Jumping from his seat and tossing the scroll away, Hiruzen went to his crystal ball to see if he can find Naruto. Kakashi, startled by this and seeing the look of dread on the Hokage's face, went to ask the Hokage, "Sir, what's the matter?" Hiruzen with a worried look tried to locate Naruto by tracking his chakra signature but was having difficulty finding it. I've been in meetings nonstop this whole week, and you were sent out on a mission for that time as well, and I don't find it just coincidence that this happened the very week that the festival was happening. You know how the villagers get during that day, Hiruzen said while switching to the view of the ball to just see inside his apartment, but still finding no trace of the boy. Kakashi, realizing what was going on, urgently asked the question, Hokage-sama, please tell me. Where is Naruto-kun? Hiruzen, looking at the one-eyed Umbu, said, I don't know, I can't find his chakra signature. With a snap of his fingers, 2 more Umbu, Nico and Tenzo, appeared in front of the Hokage. You 3 are to search the village for Naruto-kun. Start with the usual places he can be found. Inu, I want you to use your summons to track him. A resounding HAI was heard from the 3 as they disappeared from the office. As he went back to take a seat in his chair, one thought kept going through his head, please. Let the boy be alright. The Umbu searched the entire village looking for the boy from rooftops, street level, and businesses they knew he frequented, but found nothing. Inu checked Ichiraku Ramen, asking Tuchi and Ayam if they had seen the boy but got too worried no from the pair, now even more worried for their favorite customer. Nico looked around the Hokage monument, and found no evidence of him being there recently. Tenzo was jumping from rooftop to rooftop looking down on the streets of Konoha but found no trace of blonde hair. They spent the rest of the day searching but no luck. The next day, Irika was frustrated. He was on his way to Naruto's apartment to check on the boy since he hasn't been in class for the last few days. He was accompanied by the shy Hyuga heiress Hinata, who was insistent on coming. You know you didn't have to join me on this visit, Hinata-san. Hinata, looking up, and her sensei answered in a meek stutter, I wanted to make sure that Naruto-kun was alright. Irika just accepted that and kept going, wanting to get this over with. He knew about Naruto and what he held within, and although he didn't really hate the boy, he didn't like him either. He felt more indifferent to the kid, but deep down he did blame Naruto for his parents' death. He knew it was wrong of him to do so, but he couldn't help it. It was also that he didn't really interact with the boy much since he wouldn't be his teacher for another 2 years, but he was the only one that willingly went to Naruto's home. They kept walking until they came upon the apartment complex that was Naruto's home, and what they saw shocked them both. The complex looked like it was a condemned building ready to be demolished, with graffiti with the words Die Demon and Go Back to the Hell. Support pillars that looked like it was roughly patched with wooden boards, handrails that were half gone, paint that long since peeled off, and broken windows that were sealed with cardboard. This can't be the place. Can it? Said Irika as he pulled out a piece of paper with the address on it just to find that this was indeed the right address. Hinata was stunned, wondering how someone could live in this building, since she was so used to living in the Hyuga compound. Hinata, are you coming? Irika said as he was carefully walking up the extremely worn-out stairs. Hinata ran a bit to catch up with her sensei as he was halfway up the stair, careful with the 4th, 5th, and 6th step. They are really close to breaking. They finally got to the top of the stairs and headed to Naruto's door. Knocking on the door, Irika called, Hey Naruto. Are you in there? Irika could hear some sound coming from the apartment, but it was really quiet. Hey Naruto, come out, we need to talk about why you haven't been in class. As he was screaming at the door, Hinata was standing back a bit looking at her sensei. Neither of them noticed that Inu was watching them from across the street, but what caught Inu's attention was that Irika seemed so sure that Naruto was in there, but when he was looking for the boy, Pakun could barely smell any of his scent in the apartment, which meant that it was only a residual scent, so he wasn't in there. But if the academy sensei was sure, then he had to make sure, so he kept watching at a distance. Irika, becoming frustrated, tried the doorknob and was shocked to see that it was unlocked. Pushing the door open, he and Hinata went inside, and they were shocked once more because of the mess of the small dining room they walked into, with a fridge directly to their left and a small dining table that didn't leave much room between it and the wall, a stove on the opposite side of the room adjacent to the broken window that was parallel to the door. Hearing sound from the door to their right, they both went towards it, having to go through a door frame that has a very short white flap to come upon a very small bathroom with a small tub, and next to the tub was a door that led to the toilet. But ignoring that door and walking to the ajar door that leads to Naruto's bedroom. While opening the door, they saw something scurry from the door that led to the balcony, which was on the opposite wall, to under the bed, which was directly to their left, but they couldn't see what it is very well since the lights were off and the window was covered with cardboard as an attempt to keep it sealed. Thinking Naruto was just fooling around with them, Irika decided to end this game with his big head jutsu. Naruto, get out from under there and stop acting like a fool, he yelled as his head grew 4 times its size. After the scream, they heard a yelp from the bed as something came out from under the bed and went to the other side of the room and huddled into the corner. Hitting the light switch, what they saw was not what they were expecting. What they saw was a small fox kit, think Kurama when he was younger but only slightly bigger than puppy Akamaru, shivering in fear, eyes closed and tail wrapped around itself. Irika and Hinata stood there dumbfounded until Hinata decided to get closer to the fox kit. It's okay. We won't hurt you, she said as she reached out to touch the fox, but it flinched a bit when her hand touched its head, but as she started to pet its head, it began to open its eyes and look at the Hyuga girl. Hinata, seeing it open its eyes, smiled warmly at it, and saw that it stopped shivering so much, but was still somewhat afraid. Irika just stood there at the door wondering when Naruto got a pet fox, and why he got it, since foxes were hated in the village ever since the Kyuubi attack, but it didn't concern him so much. But as he saw Hinata pick up the fox, he saw something that made his heart stop. The fox had 2 tails. As that was going through Irika's head, Hinata was staring at the fox's eyes. Still looking slit like a fox's eyes, but the color is what grabbed her attention. They were azure blue, just like Naruto's. Your eyes are just like Naruto-kun's eyes. That statement did it for Irika. Hinata, get away from that thing, he said as he pulled out a kunai with one hand and pulled the girl back with the other, forcing her to drop the fox. That sudden action caused the fox to run in between their legs and out the front door, leaving them behind. Meanwhile, across the street on a building rooftop, Inu was confused as he heard Irika yelling inside the apartment, but from he heard he assumed that Naruto was inside doing something to annoy the academy sensei, but he was relieved to know that the kid was fine and not harmed for now until Irika would begin lecturing him for skipping class. Turning to leave to tell the Hokage that he found Naruto, he stopped when he heard Irika scream, "Hinata, get away from that thing!" He turned back to the apartment just in time to see a small orange animal run out the door and heading down the stairs. Looking closely, he saw it was a fox, but his eye widened when he saw it had two tails. Seeing that it is running to an alley right underneath him, he decided to cut it off before the alley exit. Jumping down, startling the fox, he pulled out a kunai ready to strike when needed. Startled by the newcomers, the fox turned around only to stop when it saw the other man coming up as well. Blocked from both ends, it didn't know what to do and went to the side of the alley too, clawing at the wall in an attempt to get away, but it wasn't working. Giving up on that, it just hid in some newspaper that was thrown away. Inu began pulsing his chakra in a certain pattern to signal his fellow Umbu and waited for them to arrive. 7 seconds later, an Umbu squad appeared at both his sides and pulled out their weapons prepared to attack whatever Inu was facing, but everyone was stopped when Hinata ran past their legs and spread out her arms in a protective manner. What are you doing to the poor thing? Move aside, Hyuga-sama. We don't want to hurt you, said one of the Umbu. Though he didn't know what they were facing, he knew it wasn't the Hyuga girl. Put your weapons down, immediately, said an aged voice from behind the Umbu. Turning around, they saw it was the Hokage. What is the meaning of this, Inu? Why have you called for your Umbu squad? Sir, it seems that he was stopped when he heard a whine coming from behind them. Turning, they saw that the Hyuga girl had walked to the hidden fox, removed the newspaper, picked it up, cradling it as best she could, and the fox was shivering excessively with all eyes on it. Hiruzen, seeing the fox, widened his eyes when he saw the two tails. He would have signaled the Umbu to try and get the fox away from the girl, but he stopped himself when the fox started to calm down a bit as it looked into the old man's eyes, and he couldn't help but have a flashback of a young boy with the same color eyes looking at him. Umbu, hold your position, he said as he walked up to the fox and girl, keeping an eye on the fox. He noticed that as he kept walking, the fox started to relax a bit but looked at the old man with confusion in its eyes. Finally reaching the Hyuga girl and fox, he knelt down to them and looked into the fox's eyes. Umbu, stand down, he said in a soft voice. But sir, one of the Umbu said in urgency. It's all right, Inu, go get Hayashi Hyuga and tell him to meet me in my office as soon as he can. Inu left, obeying his Hokage, as Hiruzen placed a hand on the girl's. Okay, Hyuga-chan, we need to go to my office and have a small talk about what happened. Hi, Hokage-sama, she said as she clutched the fox a bit tighter. With a small smile, he shined away in a swirl of leaves and the Umbu left, going back to their duties. Irika, now left alone, looked towards the apartment building behind him and couldn't help but wonder what had happened to the kid and feel pity, thinking that he was taken over by the Kyuubi. Everyone in the Hokage office were both tense and befuddled. Here was the Kyuubi, in their eyes, on the Hokage's desk, tapping on the Hokage's hat that Hiruzen put down, with its paw like it was trying to figure it out. Around the room were an Umbu squad, all with either kunai in their hands or ready to pull out their tantos and katanas. Hayashi, who was called to pick up Hinata, stood in front of her in a protective manner, unsure of what to do, until he decided that it was time to leave before something happened. Hokage-sama, if you would permit, I believe it's time for me and my daughter to be on our way. Hiruzen, taking his eyes off the fox, looked towards Hayashi. Very well, Hayashi-san, you may go about your business, but… Turning serious, the Hokage stood from his chair and looked the head of the Hyuga clan. You are to remain silent about this situation. Should the people find out about this, there would be mass panic throughout the village. Do you understand me? Hayashi, an understanding, bowed to the village leader. Understood, Hokage-sama. And I will make sure that Hinata understands as well. With that, Hinata bowed as well and they both left the office. Sitting back down in his chair, he looked at the fox once more, couldn't help but chuckle as the fox was able to get underneath the hat, and looked at the old man, and for a second he saw it again. A little blonde boy, wearing the hat, looking at him with the same colored eyes, saying, I'm going to be the best Hokage ever, Databeo. With the thought in his head, he decided to take a leap of faith. Naruto-kun? Is it still you? The fox just tilted its head, not understanding what the human said, but wagged its tail a bit. Depressed and realizing that the fox didn't know what he said, another thought came to mind when he saw the slightly wagging tail. Pressing the button on the intercom on his desk, he called his secretary. Yes, Hokage-sama, how may I help you? A female voice was heard over the intercom. Yes, please send for Inoichi Yamanaka for me, please, and tell him to come to my office and that it is urgent. Yes, sir. One of the Umbu, not getting what the Hokage was planning, decided to ask, Sir, why do you want Yamanaka-sama to come here? Pulling out his pipe and lighting it with a small bit of fire jutsu, he turned his chair sideways and turned his to look out onto the village. I'm taking a major leap of faith in possibly getting Naruto-kun back. 30 minutes later. Inoichi walked into the Hokage office. Hokage-sama, what can I do? He halted in his greeting when his eyes landed on the fox sleeping on the desk and its two tails twitching as it sleeps. Ah, Inoichi-san, I'm glad that you got here so soon. I have a task that only you would be able to accomplish, the Hokage said as he looked at the Yamanaka Jonin. Knocked out of his stupor, Inoichi asked what would that task be, Hokage-sama, while still eyeing the fox a bit. I would like you to dive into the mind of this little fox you see before you, he said as if it was a normal request. Thinking this to be a joke, Inoichi couldn't help but chuckle a bit. Sir, you must be joking, to ask me to use my clan's jutsu to enter the mind of this two-tailed fox. Pausing for a second and a thought finally clicking in his head, he looks at the Hokage. Sir, is that the Kyuubi? Hiruzen, hearing this, gets up and does a few hand signs and places his hand on the wall, sealing the room in a privacy seal. What I am asking you to do is see if you can find Naruto in there, and if possible bring him out. But Hokage-sama, it's much too dangerous to do something like that. You don't even know if he is in there. His mind could have been taken over by the Kyuubi, Inoichi told the old man, thinking this was a horrible idea. Understanding where Inoichi was coming from but still holding on to hope, he responded, I understand your fears, but I believe he is still in there, maybe suppressed, but still in there. About to protest, but seeing the serious look on the Hokage's face, he relented. He chose to obey his leader, but he would pull out if anything goes wrong. Grabbing a chair in front of the desk, he put his hands in the jutsu hand sign. Before you go in, if you see any sign of the Kyuubi, or if the boy is truly lost to it, you are to leave his mind immediately. Now he was nervous if he had the Hokage confirming his escape plan. Stealing his nerves, he decided to get this over with, so he started. Okay, here we go, mind transfer jutsu. After the jutsu success, his body slumped and everyone kept an eye on the two to make sure nothing bad happens. Taking a puff from his pipe, Hiruzen couldn't help but pray, I hope you succeed, Inoichi. Inside the fox's mind, Inoichi found himself surrounded by nothing but darkness. This can't be right. Any mind, whether animal, human or summon, should have some sort of build to it, but this mind seems like it has nothing in it at all. No memories, no personality, nothing. He began to walk in a random direction to see if he can find anything in this mind. For 8 minutes he walked until he found himself falling. He didn't worry so much since he is skilled in mind walking, but it was a bit shocking to find himself falling in utter darkness. When he finally hit the ground, he was now surrounded by a sewer-like area, dark dirty yellow walls that had big cracks in them and debris all over the ground. With a loud groan, he picked himself up and found that he was slightly wet. Looking down, he saw that the floor had some small puddles and wet concrete. Dusting himself, he heard some noises coming from deeper within the tunnels and began walking towards it. He began to get a clearer sound of what it was. That sounds like canine yipping? He came upon a massive room and spotted the tiny fox playing with its tails close to an unlit area. Is that him? Walking closer to the fox, who stopped playing when he noticed the human and began backing away. The fox took a step back as Inoichi took a step forward slowly. On the third step, the fox turned around and ran into the darkness. Wait. Inoichi ran after the fox until he was a few steps in the darkness, and he froze in fear when a pair of massive red eyes opened from within said darkness and stared at the shinobi. He was so lost in fear that he didn't have time to react to a massive clawed hand snatched him up and lifted him off the ground. What do you think you're doing here, Ningen? Have you come here to hurt my kid even more than those insects you call villagers? Inoichi couldn't speak. He had seen the Kyuubi from a distance during the attack, but he never thought he would ever be this close to it. For an extremely tense 10 seconds, neither said anything until a whine was heard and Inoichi looked to the top of the Kyuubi's head and saw the little fox, and then something clicked in his mind. He originally thought the little fox was the Kyuubi, but if the one squeezing the life out of him was the Kyuubi, then the little one must be Naruto. Hearing the Ningen, Kurama began to squeeze harder, thinking he should destroy the Ningen's mind as a message to any who did harm to his kit, but paused his action when he heard the Ningen wheeze out a question. What did you do to him? Looking at the man, Kurama paused his angry action enough to sense if there was any malicious intent coming from him. Detecting none, he decided to answer. It was an unexpected side effect in pouring all of my chakra into his body to save his life from all his injuries, and the kanai in his stomach. Feeling a bit of his breath returning and shocked at the new piece of information, Inoichi decided to get as much information about the situation as possible. What do you mean by kanai in his stomach? Did he try to end his own life, or was it an accident? Kurama, feeling his anger rise from this assumption, squeezed much harder than before. It was no accident. Some of your younger shinobi and one of your chunin that caused so much pain to him, and if I were able to, I would find them and tear them apart, but keep them alive so they could feel every bit of my fury. Kurama screamed, releasing a good amount of ki, but stopped when he heard a small whine on the top of his head. Calming himself down, he released a calming breath and put the Ningen down, and using his tail he picked Naruto up from his head and moved his tail to be directly in front of him on the ground so the kid could sleep on his tail. After the kit snuggled a bit in Kurama's tail, he was fast asleep. Inoichi, still wary of the Kyuubi but a little calmer, finally noticed something about the fox. The Kyuubi looked like it had been starved and dehydrated for a long period of time, having its bone structure somewhat visible. Think of when Naruto pulled out the Kyuubi's chakra in Shippuden. Another thing that shocked him was the fact that the fox only had one tail. What happened to you? He involuntarily asked. Still not feeling any ill intent, he looked down at his sleeping kit. Kurama decided to answer his question. I used almost all of my power to save him, leaving me with an extremely small amount left for myself, but I shall regain my power over time, he said with a sigh. But I worry about the kit. This whole thing never should have happened to him, and I'm afraid of what will happen now that he is like this. Inoichi could understand what the fox was going through, as the look that it was giving was the look of a very worried father, and he knew it because he gave it several times with his daughter Ino. Deciding to continue and have a bit of trust in the demon fox, he began, may I ask you a few questions, Kyuubi? Tearing his sight from the sleeping kit, Kurama looked at the ninja and nodded for him to continue. What happened to Naruto? As in, he seemed to not recognize anyone or anything, not even the Hokage who we all know he views as a grandfather? I have sealed away all his memories so he wouldn't deal with the incident that caused this, he said as he gently nuzzled the kit. That got the ninja's attention. Impossible. The only way that he could do that is if he had full access to Naruto's mind, but he shouldn't have that since he is sealed. He then looked around and noticed the cage doors off their hinges, broken, laying against the walls, with the seal tag underneath one of them. How did you break out of the seal? The Yondame's seal seemed impossible to break. Looking at the ninja, he spoke. I was released from the seal just as his mind was falling apart. Feeling tired from all the talking, he decided that the conversation must end soon. I will be going into a pseudo-hibernation soon, so to help you understand what happened, I will be giving you the memory of what happened to my kit, and how I was released, lifting a claw and moving it to Inoichi, slowly as to not startle him. He used his claw to remove the headband and placed the tip of the claw on the ninja's forehead, and a flash of memories flowed into the ninja's head. To a normal person, even a ninja, having memories implanted into your head would disorient them or knock them out. But the Yamanaka are ninjas of the mind, so Inoichi handled it pretty well. What he couldn't handle was the action done against the once boy, now fox kit by Genin, not much older than the once blonde and a Chunin, supposed future assets to the shinobi forces and someone that is meant to protect the citizens, including the young. The boy was the same age as his daughter, and no child should go through any of that. To say that he was furious was an understatement. He made sure to memorize all the faces that Naruto got a look at and the Chunin that killed the boy. Yes, killed Naruto had died that night, and was brought back thanks to the Kyuubi. Now, with almost everything resolved, Inoichi was preparing to leave but had one final thing that needed to be resolved. Will you return Naruto's memories to him? As that was what I originally came here to do. Thinking about it for a moment, Kurama decided he would. I will return most of his memories, but I shall slowly give back a few of his more traumatic memories and the memory of the incident, for his own benefit. My kid should not be hindered by them anymore. He might have a slight change in his personality, such as being a bit more mischievous, but other than that he should be the same Naruto we all know. Also, do not tell your Hokage about me, and don't tell Naruto that I am real yet. Now Inoichi was confused by that statement, since it seemed that they already met, but before he could ask, Kurama answered. The old monkey doesn't and will not ever trust me, so it's best to say that you got these memories from the kid's mind and tell him an altered version of how this happened, for if he knew, he would do everything in his power to keep me from my kid. And as for Naruto, for the many years that he has known me, his childlike mind has come up with the idea that I am a figment of his imagination, brought up in his dreams, since he has only ever interacted with me as he sleeps, and I don't want to burden him with the truth just yet. I will wait until he is a little older. I just hope that when he learns the whole truth he will forgive me, he said as he gave a small little lick at the still sleeping kit, and chuckled as the kit just snuggled deeper into his tail. I am asking you this as a father who wants what's best for their child, and I believe this way of doing things would be best. Inoichi didn't like the idea of keeping secrets from the Hokage, but reluctantly agreed to this and chose now to leave the boy's mind. After giving another secret request only meant for Inoichi, he watched the ninja leave. Sighing, Kurama leaned his head down, closing his eyes, and went to sleep with one final thought entering his: I'm sorry, Naruto, I hope to see you soon when I wake up and that you will forgive me. Back in the Hokage's office. 40 minutes had passed since Inoichi jumped into the fox kid's mind, and the only reaction that he gave were a few grunts of pain and an angry scowl that appeared on his face. Hokage-sama, should it normally take this long for Inoichi-san to retrieve memories? Asked Inu. Hiruzen, already finished with his first set of tobacco, simply sighed. No, Inu. Normally he is able to retrieve the memory he is looking for within a few minutes if he knows what he's looking for, if not then 10 to 15, but with the amount of time he has been in there I worry he might have come across a problem. At that moment Inoichi bolted awake, shocking everyone in the room as he took several breaths of air and regained his bearings. After a minute he looked at Hiruzen and decided to give his report on the memory retrieval. Hokage-sama, mission accomplished with a bit more than I thought I would get. Hiruzen looked at Inoichi with a serious look and began. Very well, Inoichi-san, begin your report about what happened in there. So let me see if I have everything in order, Hiruzen said as he recounted what he had just heard from the Yamanaka clan head. You found Naruto deep within his subconscious, hiding in fear but not sure of what was going on around him, which is why he didn't recognize us in this new form. He said, pointing at the fox sleeping on the desk, and you were able to bring him out of this as well as see what happened to him. He finished, looking at Inoichi. Yes, Hokage-sama, it was shocking to find out what the boy had gone through. Hiruzen nodded his head as he thought about what he was told. And you said that you saw the Kyuubi still sealed and weakened? Yes, sir. Inoichi had told the Hokage that the Kyuubi was still sealed behind the bars with the seal tag still in place, and that the reason for the change was a shortened, altered version of the truth, being that the Fox Force healed Naruto to save its own life, because if Naruto dies the Kyuubi would die as well, even if it would take some years before it would reform in the world, and this was an interesting side effect as the demon proclaimed. But the truth was more complicated than that. Flashback memory transfer. Kurayame tu cha. Naruto tutu. Kurama kept ramming the bars, trying everything in his power to save his kit. As the mine began to crumble and fall apart, with chunks of the ceiling falling to the ground and huge cracks showing up on the walls, he was becoming desperate, and even begging for some sort of miracle. But it was the fading of both the walls and ceiling turning into nothing but a black abyss that finally made him stop in despair. No, he softly said as he leaned his head against the cage, all my power, and I can't even save him. So lost in his thoughts he didn't notice a figure appear in the center of the crumbling room holding the still form of Naruto. Kyuubi. Hearing this, Kurama lifted his head from the cage doors and saw someone he never thought he would see again, Minato. He screamed in anger but stopped. Looking at the still form of Naruto in the Yandame's arms, he took a deep breath before he asked in a subdued tone, can you save him? Minato, surprised by the tone the Kyuubi was giving, looked down at his son, and with a few tears rolling down his face he begrudgingly answered, I can't. This was something that Kurama didn't want to hear. What do you mean you can't? This is your son and you can't even use any kind of jutsu to save him. Kurama's ranting slowly died when a thought came to mind. It was a risky move since he wasn't sure about what would happen, but if there was a chance it would work, he would take it. Can you release me from this cage? He asked quickly because for his idea to work, he needed to do it fast. Minato looked up at the fox with a critical eye. Why would you ask me to release you when you know I don't trust you? For all I know, you would just finish what you started before and destroy Konoha. Kurama slammed his fist against the bars as his panic and anger drove him to continue. Fool, I want to save my kit from death, and I can't do it with all my power still held back by this seal. Minato looked at the Kyuubi with a calculating gaze. It was just so unexpected, and what happened next just made him even more confused. The Kyuubi bowed before him and begged. Please. I'm begging you to let me save my kit. If you don't hurry we could lose him forever, and he doesn't deserve to die like this. The mindscape was already half gone, and the remaining ceiling was already dropping concrete pieces around them. Kurama, still in the position, was hoping that Minato would do it. And to his shock, he heard a rip of paper and metallic clanks right afterward. Lifting his head he saw that Naruto was placed on the floor in the center of the room and Minato opening the gates. Try anything funny and I will immediately seal you in again. I may be just a chakra construct but I still have the power to reseal you, Minato said in all seriousness. Kurama, ignoring the threat, quickly opened the gates, moved to Naruto, wrapped him in his tails, and pushed all of his chakra into the boy. Real world, on the floor of Naruto's apartment. Naruto's body still lay there with no light in his eyes, no movement of breath, it just lay there lifeless. However, the seal that was on his stomach began to glow and increase in size. The kunai that was still in the boy's stomach acted as a sort of block for the chakra, keeping it all from leaking out, much which kept it from being sensed from any sensor in the village. The seal continued to increase in size until it covered the whole body in a glowing light. Kurama kept pushing his chakra into the boy and was able to stop the deterioration of the mind, but it wasn't enough to bring him back. Damn it. It's not working. He kept trying to bring his kid back but knew that his lack of success was from only being half of himself. If I had even a sliver of my Yin chakra, I would be able to save him, Kurama said, thinking of how Minato split him in two and sealed the Yin half into himself before he sealed him, Yan Kurama, into Naruto. As he thought of his Yin side, he felt a trickle of it really close to him. Looking around, his eyes landed on the Minato chakra construct, who decided to stand aside and watch as he tried to save the boy. Looking down to think for a second, Kurama thought of a possible solution before looking at Minato. Minato, I need your help in saving him. Minato looking at the Kyuubi questionably, he was about to ask but was answered before he could. I believe you have a bit of my other chakra half, not a lot, but enough to save Naruto. My guess is that when you sealed my in half in yourself and then made the 8 trigram seal, a bit of it was mixed into the chakra construct since it was made from the real Yandame's chakra. What I need you to do is place your hand where Naruto is and I can divert it into the boy. Unsure, Minato asked, what will this do to him? Kyuubi quickly answered, with it, I can bring him back. Without it, I can only stall his soul from leaving. Agreeing to it since it will save his son, Minato quickly moved to the spot where Naruto was and placed his hand on the tail that completely covered the boy. Kurama started to move the Yin chakra into the boy and prayed to his father that it would work. Real world. Naruto's body began to glow brighter until it was encased in a ball of light that went unnoticed by anyone, with the festival fireworks going off outside as the rain had stopped not long ago. Naruto's mindscape. Kurama was losing a lot of power and saving Naruto, but he didn't care. He didn't care his tails were disappearing one by one, he didn't care that he was losing muscle mass and size, but what he did care about was that the process was working. He could feel his kit starting to return and light was coming back into the mindscape. He finally reached his limit, but it was done. He removed his remaining tail and was shocked to see that instead of a human body, there lay the body of a small fox kit. Real world. The orb of light died down with the kunai flopping to the side with signs of turning to dust from the concentrated demon chakra going to it. There lay an unconscious fox kit peacefully unaware of the world around it. Naruto's mindscape. Minato was stunned silent for a moment. What happened to him? He yelled, glaring at the Kyuubi. It must have been a side effect of so much demonic chakra used to revive him using both the Yin and the Yang chakra when they are separate instead of together. The blasted kunai was somehow keeping my demonic chakra from leaving his body much. Too much of it not really speeding through his body, and it converted into this to compensate. So what will happen to him now? Minato said, looking at the fox kit. I don't know. From what I can sense, he has become a Biju Jinchuriki. His body has become about 70% Biju and the last 30% is organic, which means he is a being made mostly of chakra, so as he gets older he will be gaining tails since at the moment he only has 2. Minato crouched down to the kit so he has the same amount of power as if he accessed 2 tails of your power? Shaking his head, Kurama clarified, no, the amount of tails does not always signify a demon's power. Sometimes it is a sign of its age. This is all speculation since there have only ever been us 9, and this has never happened before. Minato got up from his crouch and looked at the fox. So what happens now? I will be sealing away his memories for a bit to remove the negative effects they will have on him, and as for you, he said, pointing at Minato, I shall reseal you into the seal so you may talk to him at a later date. Looking a little sheepish and rubbing the back of his head, Minato asked, will he be able to speak to Kushina-chan as well? Looking down on him, Kurama couldn't help but ask with some strain in his voice, you seal the construct of her in here as well? With Minato's nod, Kurama sighed, that will be up to you when you and the kid meet, but now that he is safe, I believe it's time to end this whole thing. And with that, Minato nodded his head before he slowly vanished back into the seal. Tired and out of power, Kurama laid down in front of the kit and couldn't help but smile at the little thing. Real world. Naruto's apartment. The little fox kit began to wake up, opening its eyes to reveal slitted azure blue eyes. Stretching its front legs and yawning cutely, much like a cat, he shook his head and looked around, not knowing where it was. Looking around, it began to find a way outside and began to scratch at the door, hoping to open it, but to no avail. Giving up, it looked around again and noticed a door leading to another room and went inside, finding some furniture and bed. It looked around and finally noticed its 2 tails swishing gently behind it. Crouching a bit, it jumped at them but missed as they turned with its body. It tried again and again for several more times until it grabbed one and started to wrestle with it, and did so for a while. Flashback end. Hokage office. Inoichi was pulled from the memory when Hiruzen asked if he remembered the people that attacked Naruto. Yes, sir. I remember the faces of the man and genin that caused this, he said with venom in his voice when he spoke about these individuals. It bugged him even more since the look on the older genin's faces were close to malicious against the boy. Good, you will be leading an Umbu team to collect the Chunin to receive punishment for his actions. The genin shall be removed from our forces and banned from ever being shinobi of this village. The parents shall be brought in and questioned about the behavior of their children, and if it is found that they encourage this, they shall be punished by Ibiki for a month. I would have them executed, but since they have children that shall now remain as civilians, they shall remain alive. I will also be having my personal Umbu investigate the council, since it could only be one of them that had the chance to create that mission document that Inu received with the Hokage seal on it. This action is treason against the village and will not be tolerated, Hiruzen said with a stern look and well-concealed fury. Hearing this, Inoichi gave his request. Hokage-sama, with your permission, when we retrieve the Chunin, I would like to have a few minutes alone with him if you don't mind, sir. Quirking a brow, Hiruzen asked. Oh? And why is that? Inoichi, standing up straight, responded, his actions against the child have brought great discomfort to me, and I would like to be the one to deal some punishment to the man. Hiruzen, looking at the Yamanaka, couldn't help but think there was more to this, but he agreed all the same. Inoichi will have his time with the man. If only he knew that the man's punishment will be done a little more thoroughly. Trying to think about what to do with the fox kid, he decided that the fewer people know about this the better. So turning to Inu, he began to prepare. Inu, I would like you to place Naruto-kun here under a sleeping genjutsu as I make some preparations. Inu nodded his head and walked to the sleeping fox and shook him awake. Slowly opening his eyes, Naruto groggily got up on all fours and stretched by lifting his butt and tails in the air while pushing his front paws in front of him, like a cat. Finishing his stretch, he sat on his haunches and with his eyes still closed wiped his face with his right paw. He finally got some of the sleep out of his eyes and looked up at Inu as the ninja moved his umbu mask and headband a bit and revealed an eye with a scar going vertically over it, and the iris of the eye being blood red with 3 tomos in a triangle formation. Sleep! Naruto was extremely uncomfortable when he saw the eye, but he couldn't think about it as a second later his eyes grew very heavy and fell on his side asleep once more. Putting both his headband and umbu mask back on, Inu turned to the Hokage. He will remain asleep until I release him from the genjutsu, but if I may ask, what do you plan on doing, sir? Getting up from his seat, Hiruzen picked up the, once again, sleeping fox and turned Inu. It is something that I feel must be done. He turned to Inoichi before continuing, when you retrieve your query you are to take him to the Umbu headquarters prison cells. Once that is done, Inu, you are to go to this address. He said as he gave Inu a slip of paper. You and Inoichi will receive instructions when you arrive. Inoichi paused for a moment and asked, Sir, why will you not give the instructions now? With a stern look, he answered, this situation has brought some things to light, and I want to play this really close to the chest. I'm not willing to gamble on this so much, so this must be done quickly and quietly. Everyone, in understanding, nodded their heads and thought about the whole situation. What are you waiting for? You have your missions. Now get to it! Hiruzen all but yelled at the ninja in his office. With that, they all went to complete their missions, and Hiruzen left with Naruto in a shunshin. With the search team, Inoichi followed the tracker of the Umbu team as they made their way towards their target. Inoichi wanted to personally retrieve this man, as it was sickening that someone in their forces could be so cruel to an innocent. It didn't take long until they arrived at the entrance of a bar, and a celebration could be heard from the outside. Yay! With its death, the village will be at peace once again. I bet the Hokage will beg me to be his personal Umbu guard, said their target as he and a group of 5, who are presumed to be his friends, made a toast. Man, they might just make you the Hokage after you finished what the Yondaime set up for us. Hell yeah, and when I do become the Hokage, I will promote all of you guys to Jonin. We will be living the good life after this, boys. Several of the other patrons were watching the celebration with smiles on their faces, hearing that the demon was gone, some saying they will buy the man a drink. Hearing enough of this, Inoichi gave his orders. I want 4 of you to stay here in case some of them try to escape. The remaining 5 will arrest the celebrating party, and 1 of you will join me in apprehending our target. Getting nods, he walked in, heading straight for the man. Once in front of the group, he made himself known. I am sorry to tell you this, but your celebration has come to an end, Inoichi said in a professional manner. Everyone in the bar stopped what they were doing and looked to Inoichi. The Chunin asked, what do you mean? We should be celebrating for weeks after I killed that demon brat. Am I right, boys? Everyone in the bar shouted out yeah, while raising their mugs. Temper rising but holding on to his composure, he continued, you are under arrest, sir, for misconduct to a superior officer, assault on a child, manipulation of genin for your own goals, breaking and entering, and attempted murder on a citizen of the Leaf. In fact, you and everyone else celebrating are under arrest as well for breaking the Sandaime's law. Hearing this, they all got up from their chairs screaming, what the fuck? You can't be serious? In the blink of an eye, everyone apart from the main target were tied up in wire coming from the team of Umbu. Everyone tried to get out of the wires but soon stopped when the Umbu began to pull out their blades. Angry at the turn of events, the Chunin turned to Inoichi and threw a right haymaker. Unfortunately for him, it was caught by Inoichi, and with minimal strength, Inoichi threw the man over his shoulder and slammed him onto the ground. Let me add assault on a Jonin officer and one of the heads of the Konoha torture and interrogation force. With one final punch to the face, the Chunin was knocked out and pulled onto his shoulders. Turning to the Umbu, take them away, I will handle this one, and with that, they all left, leaving everyone else in the restaurant stunned about what just happened. It had been some hours since the group that attacked Naruto had been captured and put into the Umbu headquarters prison cells, which to the people outside only looks like a common storage warehouse located at the west side of the village. Inoichi was walking past several observation windows with some things going through his head. I won't have a lot of time to do this, but for this, I won't need it. Just do it and return before Kakashi can return from his report. Flashback. After everyone was dropped off at the Umbu prison, Inoichi and Kakashi had arrived at the address that was given to them by the Hokage, that was located in one of the forests just outside the village. Well, this is the place, so we should head inside, Kakashi said as he and Inoichi walked through the door of a small cottage with trees as a sort of barrier at the back of it. As they entered, they noticed several seals around the cottage, and in the main room, and saw Naruto sleeping on a coffee table with a small note next to him. Walking up to him and picking up the note, Inoichi read the note out loud. The both of you are to guard Naruto until I arrive in a few hours. Inu, you are to check on the genjutsu and make sure that it remains. After you are sure that it is still stable, you are to report to me to discuss some things, and Inoichi, you are to remain with Naruto. After hearing this, Kakashi looked at Naruto and pulled off his mask, revealing his dull-looking right eye while his other eye was covered by his hitite, which was slanted in order to cover it. He pulled up his hitite and examined Naruto. It seems that the genjutsu is still strong and will still remain. I will be going to the Hokage to report that we have apprehended everyone and they are sent to the Umbu prison. Ibiki and Anko are set to go through them. After Kakashi said that, he placed his Umbu mask back on and shined away. Seeing that this might be the only chance he could get, he made his move. Waiting for a few minutes, he walked to Naruto and picked him up. Time to get the request over and done with. And with that, he placed the sleeping fox into his jacket's inner pocket and shined to the prison building. Flashback end. Inoichi kept walking through the halls until he saw Anko Mitarashi, who was looking through an observation window of one of the interrogation rooms. Noticing a scowl on the woman's face, he stopped next to her and looked into the room. So how many have you gone through? Not looking away from what was going on in the room, she answered the man, this would be my 4th one, and after another few more sessions with this one, I will move on to the next one, and then come back to this one after 30 minutes. She gripped her jacket sleeve hard as she thought about how many of the citizens were found guilty for encouraging the behavior of the genin. True, they were basically glorified mercenaries, and that at one point they would have to kill in a mission, but for genin to be so keen on killing one of their own just sickened her. It was the behavior of a bandit rather than a proud shinobi. Inoichi would have felt bad for this citizen, but after what they did, he held no sympathy. Looking into the room, he said one more thing before heading to his destination, give him a few more for the kid. Hearing this, Anko felt her anger rise even more and couldn't help but punch the window, and was silently thankful for the window being too tough to break. Her breathing became heavy as she spoke with much anger. They should be glad they get to live to see it. Were up to me, I would have them killed. They manipulated their own kids and taking their so-called revenge on someone that didn't do anything wrong. Taking a deep breath and pressing her hand on a certain spot on her neck, she continued softly, either of us asked for our curses or their hatred. Inoichi frowned at this when he heard it, but he knew he had something that needed to be done, so he left the woman to her own devices. He felt a bit of shifting in his jacket and thought to himself, she's right, you didn't deserve this at all, he thought as he left. Anko continued to watch one of the citizens they apprehended being eaten slowly by one of her larger snake summons, as he was screaming for his life. However, it went unheard since the room was soundproof. After a few minutes of walking, Inoichi saw his destination in front of him at the end of the hall. The Chunin found himself chained to the wall, covered in snake slime, and bleeding from several lacerations all over his body and unable to see since the room only had a small light bulb in the center of the room as well as his blurry vision. Hearing the door open, he lifted his head and saw the man that put him in there, and with what little strength he had, he glared at the man. You! How dare you put me in here on those false charges? Inoichi glared back and said nothing. All he did was grab a chair, that was barely visible in the corner of the room, and brought it in front of the man just out of reach as the Chunin began to flail wildly trying to get at the Yamanaka. Sitting down in front of the man, he got tired of the yelling, so he gently reached into his jacket and pulled out Naruto and set him on his lap sleeping away. When the Chunin saw the fox, he paused for a second and then went even crazier than before and began to ramble, so it finally shows its true face. And why is that demon allowed to roam around the village now that it has showed its ga? He was silenced when Inoichi grabbed hard on his head with one of his hands. Placing his other hand gently on Naruto's head, he spoke quietly with venom in his voice, this is a request that I agree on, so I hope that after this meeting, I never see you alive again. Ninja art, mind transference. Inside Naruto's mind, the Chunin found himself in a rundown sewer-like area, you know the one, and was confused as he looked down and realized that he was healed. How the hell did I get here? Did that demon lover knock me out and toss me in here thinking I wouldn't find the way out? What an idiot, there is always a way out. Walking in a random direction, he headed deeper through the tunnels. He then found himself in a very large room and stood in the center of the room. Great, a dead end. Now I have to backtrack and choose another route. Turning around, he was about to go back the way he came but stopped when he heard some loud growling behind him. Turning towards the pitch-black side of the room, he felt a massive amount of Ki directed at him, and got a vision where he saw himself being torn to pieces, and then another vision with his limbs being ripped from his body but still conscious. Tears running down his face, he couldn't tear his sight from the darkness where the growling was coming from. Then he saw them, the eyes opening and glaring straight down at him. He stopped breathing for 3 seconds, staring at the eyes. When he regained the ability to breathe, he started to wheeze and fell back on his butt, never taking his sight off the eyes as they started to rise, never stopping its glare at the man. Warning: heavy injury ahead, though it's kind of mild really. The eyes started to slowly come closer to him, and out of the shadows, and he started to see what it was. First, a clawed hand came out of the shadows, slamming into the ground. Second, a snout with razor-sharp teeth, the size of his whole body, that the man knew could shred him to tiny bloody chunks. Third came the long fox ears that did not seem that of a normal fox. Finally came the body that which completed the visage, what the man now knew for sure was the nine-tailed fox. In fear and panic, the man began to crawl away towards where he came from as fast as he could. He kept tripping and stumbling as he moved, not able to get to his feet, and before he could make it far, a metal gate was thrown in front of him, blocking the exit. In a small whimpering voice, he begged with a non-stop stream of tears flowing down his face, as well as trying to get through the bars of the cage door blocking his path. No, please Cammy, save me. Let me out, let me out, let me out, I want to go home, I won't do anything bad, please let me arrgggghhhhhh. He whimpered out before Kurama bit on his leg hard enough to cause bleeding but soft enough not to sever it. Kurama dragged the man back to the center of the room and let him go. The Chunin grabbed his leg as he saw the massive holes that the beast's teeth left. It took him a second to remember where he was, and he lifted his head in time to see a stream of fire coming towards him. Once the flames hit him, he screamed while he felt his skin being incinerated off him. He could feel his muscles melt into a sludge, his blood boiled rapidly inside his veins that were burst with boils from the heat. His organs blistered rapidly before breaking apart. He felt his lungs that were now deprived of oxygen crumble away, his heart had shriveled up before popping. Even his bones were not spared as they were becoming ash with the rest of what was happening to him. The entire thing felt like years were passing when it was seconds, but the pain was excruciating. After it was done, the Chunin's eyes shot open to see that he was still in the center of the room. Looking down, he saw that was still alive with no injury. I'm alive! Haha, it was nothing but a genjutsu. I bet that stupid demon lover put me in it. When I get back at him, he will, huh? He stopped his rant when the world began to spin before he felt his head hit something. Moving his eyes, he saw that there was a headless body going limp. What the? He realized that he could speak and that his neck was in pain, but as he tried to move, he realized that he couldn't feel anything but pain. His head felt like someone pierced it with a burning kunai, but he couldn't scream. In fact, no sound was coming out of his mouth. He then felt something on both sides of his head and was moving into the air. His eyes widened when he saw the Kyuubi staring at him with rage in its eyes. Kurama held the man's head between his index finger and thumb. He felt contempt at the Ningen's head before he squished it. The Chunin's eyes shot open to see he was sitting in the center of the room again. In a panic, he got up on his feet and looked around and looked up to see the Kyuubi looking down at him. He screamed and tried to run away, but then felt something grab his arm. Turning his head, he saw that the Kyuubi had grabbed his left arm in its fingers. When he felt himself being lifted, he tried punching the furred fingers with everything he had, but to no avail. He felt the fingers shifting a bit on his arm but didn't know what it was doing. He got his answer when the fingers shifted a bit more and snapped the bone in the arm. He flailed at the fingers even harder, trying to get the now broken arm out of the demon's grasp. His flailing stopped when he felt his right leg being grabbed in the same manner as his arm. No, let me go, you no go day. His leg was now broken in the same manner as his arm. He could still feel the grasp on both his arm and leg and didn't know why it didn't let him go yet. His body started to move to a horizontal position, growling, "What are you doing?" he asked in a soft, hoarse voice. He got his answer when he felt his arm and leg being softly tugged in opposite directions. No, and no, please don't. He began to cry in fear as he felt the Kyuubi tug again, and again, each one stronger than the last. After 6 tugs or so, it became a slow pull and he knew what was coming up next. Don't do it, Cammy, please don't let this happen. He felt both his broken arm and leg being ripped off his body with blood splattering on his face, and then felt a rush of air as he fell from a few stories. He felt the impact of the floor, and his eyes shot open again to find himself in a sitting position in the center of the room once more. The Chunin didn't even take the time to see around him. He just got to his feet and ran with all his might to where he thought the exit might be. After a few steps, he collapsed onto the ground face first as he felt immense pain from his legs. He would have looked back if it wasn't for the pair of legs that were cut from above the knee hit the ground in front of him. The blood from the legs created a puddle that his face was now in. He knew the legs belonged to him. For a reason, even he didn't know, he slowly reached out to them, but a brief sight of something white passing by and the arms he reached out with was severed from below the elbow. He stifled his scream but had more tears coming down his face as he brought the now stump to his chest as he used his only remaining limb to hold it close to felt his body being forced to lay on his back, and he saw a couple of white pointed objects heading towards him, and then he felt massive amounts of burning pain in his eye sockets. He would have tried to move his remaining hand to his eyes, but he then felt his remaining arm quickly separated from his body. Ayawaha. All he could do was flail his stumps around as his arms, legs, and eyes were gone. His flailing sprayed his blood everywhere, as his body was in the center of a large puddle of blood that reflected the Kyuubi looking down at him. The Chunin was entirely shocked to be able to see again, but this time he didn't run. He curled into a ball, face down, and prayed that it would stop. He didn't get his wish as he felt something stab straight through his back, severing his spine, and through his arms cutting them off. Again awake, he looked towards the Kyuubi with a mad look in his eyes. "I will not let you keep doing this to me," he screamed with his eyes glaring, one eye still with normal coloring but one was opened wider, bloodshot, and the usual white scara was now a reddish pink. Jumping into the air towards the Kyuubi, he pulled out a kunai from his weapons pouch, but he never made it to his target as the Kyuubi swung his hand in a fan-like motion and the wind from the swipe blew him further into the air. Before he made his harsh descent, he felt the Kyuubi bite down on his torso. He spat out tons of blood from his mouth before he gave wheezing screams. Lifting the still screaming Chunin in his mouth, Kurama flicked his head hard to the left and threw the Chunin towards the wall. He watched as the man impact the wall hard before falling down like a ragdoll. Kurama spat out the blood in his mouth and moved towards the Chunin. Laying on his side, he could feel that both of his arms, ribs, and both legs were broken. Bleeding excessively, he had internal injuries and a punctured lung, which caused difficulty breathing. He couldn't think straight anymore, but he could hear the footsteps of the demon fox walking close to him. Turning his eyes, he saw it standing above him and heard it speak. "You don't get the chance to die or even pass out until I say you can." Gasping for air, he let out a silent whimpering wwwa. Looking at the bleeding Ningen, Kurama hardened his glare and flipped him on his back with his claw before stabbing said claw into his stomach. Ar gurgled GH. "How does it feel? Did you enjoy the pain you put my kit through?" Twisting his claw, he continued, "You get to feel his pain. But unlike my kit, you won't die. Your mind, however, won't." And with a growl he finished, "So I will be punishing you until I'm satisfied, then you have my permission to die," and with another twist of his claw he began. Warning end marker. Real world. Inoichi was glad he didn't see whatever it was the Kyuubi did, because after a few minutes the man began to convulse and bleed from the eyes, nose, and mouth. See no other reaction happen, he ended the jutsu, letting the man's head fall limp, and got up as he gently put Naruto in his jacket inner pocket and made sure he was as comfortable as possible. He began to walk out of the room, leaving the now broken man to hang by his chains until his execution. Walking out of the building, he had one final thought before he shined back to the hideout. "I fulfilled your request, Kyuubi." Unknown location. Hiruzen had finished what he needed with Kakashi. Afterward, put the final touches to his plan in secret, and was all ready for what he was going to do next. He left in a shushin and arrived at the hideout. Once he arrived, he saw that Kakashi was staring out the window on high alert, and Inoichi sitting on a chair with Naruto sleeping on his lap. "I see you both have completed your missions." They both turned to the Hokage and bowed as best they could. "Hokage-sama, are you here to move with this plan of yours?" Walking to Inoichi, he picked up the sleeping Naruto and began to walk towards the door. "Yes, I have finished up everything and you two are now free to go back to your usual duties." Hearing this, both ninja had to know what it was the Hokage wanted to do with the boy. "Sir, what are you going to do with Naruto?" Kakashi asked. Turning to the ninja, Hiruzen answered, "I'm going to return him to his original state," and with that finally said, he shined away. Back in unknown location. Hiruzen now stood in a large room holding his hands in the ram sign with Naruto laying in an intricate seal array in front of him. Focusing his chakra into the seal array, he began. The seal began to glow as it shrank and crawled onto Naruto's body until it covered his body. For 24 minutes they stayed still until the seal finally finished, and in a bright light that caused Hiruzen to close his eyes, Naruto appeared in his original 8-year-old body, but with no clothes on and a new seal on his lower back that disappeared. Hiruzen opened his eyes to see this, walked up to the boy, pulled off his Hokage robes, wrapped the boy up, and with a tired sigh, he walked out Naruto's apartment that night. After Hiruzen met with Kakashi, who was shocked to see Naruto back to normal, they went back to Naruto's apartment, dressed the boy and laid him in his bed. So, now what do we do, Hokage-sama? With a tired sigh, Hiruzen answered, we keep going as if nothing happened, but I want you to begin an investigation on the people that have access to my office. Find the ones that sent you on that mission and you are to terminate them, no exceptions, he said in a stern voice. Hi Hokage-sama. Turning to leave, Hiruzen gives his last order for the day: release him from the genjutsu and begin your mission. Doing as he was told, he released the genjutsu and left the boy to his sleep. With a jolt, Naruto woke up and looked around through sleepy, squinted eyes, but seeing nothing, plopped onto his pillow and went back to sleep with a few mumbles from Rama Rama Ramen MMM. He continued with some drool coming out of his mouth, and within a few seconds, he began to slowly purr in his sleep. Alternate ending, not used because it would change too much of how the story would have gone. After Hiruzen met with Kakashi, who was shocked to see Naruto back to normal, they went back to Naruto's apartment, dressed the boy, and laid him in his bed. So, now what do we do, Hokage-sama? With a tired sigh, Hiruzen answered, we keep going as if nothing happened, but you, Tenzo and Nico will be rotating in protection detail for Naruto, and you will report to me before every switch, and it will only be you three that have this job. No one else will take this duty, so if any other shinobi or Anbu comes to you saying they will be taking over, you are to terminate them immediately, for I will not have given such an order, he said in a stern voice. Hi Hokage-sama. Turning to leave, Hiruzen gives his last order for the day: release him from the genjutsu and begin your mission, but do so from a distance. Obeying his Hokage, he released the genjutsu and leaped out the window to begin his mission from the same roof he was on much earlier in the day. Naruto had woken up feeling awkward and strained. Getting out of bed, he couldn't help but feel like he wasn't in his own body, and moving his arms and legs felt like his joints were tightened up, but not by much. Why do I feel like I should meet a Cryoceptor Cryoceptor? Whatever that word is, he said as he tried to get up, but as he got off the bed and on his feet but fell to the ground. Awa, why can't I walk? Are my feet asleep? Maybe this is what happens if I don't sleep without my nightie cap. As he said this, he looked at the clock that was on his nightstand and his eyes grew wide. Oh no. It's 7:15 already. If I don't leave soon, I'm going to be late. With that, he rushed into the bathroom to quickly take a shower. After he finished the shower, he quickly put on a black shirt with a red swirl on the front and white shorts that have a blue line going down the side. Once dressed, he saw the time was 7:40, which meant he had 20 minutes until class, so he ran out the door, quickly locking the door, and decided to take the back alleys to avoid the people's glares and harsh words, and because it would get him there faster. Throughout all his running in panic, he never noticed that he was running on all fours and going at a much faster pace than normal. Arriving at the academy, and seeing that some kids were still outside, he figured he made it on time. But he was really confused because thinking back, he was sure he would be late. Maybe my clock is broken again. Making it to the hallway, he got up to his 2 feet unconsciously and started walking to his class with a lot of difficulty. He ended up using the wall to try and walk but kept falling. Finally making it to the classroom, he kept tripping and landed to all fours as he tried to make it to the back of the class, much to his embarrassment, as the students in the class started laughing as his teacher said nothing to stop it and kept sneering at the boy. Making it to his seat, he just decided to keep his head down for the rest of the class. He kept moving his arms and legs under his desk but couldn't get his arms to feel normal again. Once lunch had arrived, he waited for everyone to leave before he went on to nap under his favorite tree, which has a swing that only he uses. After some difficulty in walking, he made it and leaned his back against the tree. He felt really uncomfortable around everyone. It felt wrong to be around a lot of people, like he no longer just felt the glares, he could feel the hatred, and he was starting to make him feel sick. But at the moment, leaning on the tree some distance from the rest of the students and teachers, he began to relax. Resting his head on the tree, he closed his eyes and began to try and relax. It wasn't until 5 minutes later that he really began to relax, as a scent he knew he hasn't smelt before but somehow felt somewhat familiar, the smell of lavender and vanilla. He couldn't help but smile when he smelt it. Ayano, hello? Opening his eyes, he turned his head to see a girl his age with white pupilless eyes looking at him in curiosity. Naruto looked at the girl and couldn't help but think that she seemed familiar and squinted his eyes and tilted his head, racking his brain to see if he could remember this girl. After a few minutes, he thought of it. Oh hey, you're the girl that was being bullied a few months ago, he said as he pointed at her, but in the back of his mind he felt that that wasn't really where he felt he remembered her. Hi, I want to thank Yu for saving me from that, and I'm sorry for what happened to your scarf, she said in a soft whisper as she bowed to him. Naruto was kinda taken aback with the show of respect to him, so he tried to tell her it's okay, you don't need to apologize to me, he said as he rubbed the back of his head but winced in moving his arms. He tried not to show it on his face, but he didn't do a very good job since Hinata gained a look of worry. Hey, are you okay? Naruto, not wanting to cause trouble for her since she was being nice to him, tried to calm her down. Yeah, I'm fine. My arms just feel funny, he said while he gave her his foxy grin that calmed her down. Hinata, now calmed down from her worry, wanted to bring up Naruto's pet fox, so she decided to just ask him, Ayano Naruto-kun? She began, getting his attention. When did you get your small pet fox? Now Naruto was really confused, tilting his head and thinking about what she said. Pet fox? I don't have a pet fox. Maybe I should get one. I love foxes and they seem fun to play with. Looking back at her, he answered, foxes are cool and they seem really fun and hyper. They are really cool, fun animals. Databao, he said as he jumped up a bit and landed back on the ground in a crouched sitting position, and both his hands on the ground right in front of him. Hinata had to use what little Hyuga willpower she had not to say kawaii since he looked like a puppy in his sitting position. At that moment, the instructors called all the students to come back in since their break was over. Knowing that they would be going their separate ways, they both gave their goodbyes and went to their separate class. Once Naruto had gotten to his seat, albeit late with his slow pace, Naruto started to feel agitated that his teacher kept calling on him to answer the questions even though there were many others who raised their hands to answer. He really didn't like it when the teachers picked on him, and even though it was boring he tried, but when he does ask for help they punished him, saying he is disrupting the class with his misbehavior. He began to think of pranks he could do against the teacher, and so began his pranking streak against not only his teachers but the villagers as well. When the school day ended, Naruto just wanted to go home since all day he couldn't move normally and was using a stick he found as a walking stick to help. This, however, gave the citizens the idea that he would be an easier target. One by one the villagers started to become a mob until one of them couldn't take it anymore and threw a rock at the boy, hitting him in the head and forced him to the ground face first. Looking back, he finally noticed the mob. He hadn't noticed because he was trying to walk straight and felt really uneasy as he walked, but now that he saw it he became afraid. The mob started to run after the boy, and on pure instinct, he got up and started running on all fours with no real direction. The Umbu would have interfered with this if there were any Umbu around, but due to the investigation on the council, most, if not all Umbu members were all unavailable, so no one was around to stop it, and unfortunately the few that did notice, hated the boy and just turned the other way. Naruto, moving on pure instinct, didn't realize that he had entered a forest just outside the south gate. He also didn't realize that he had lost the mob some time ago, but when he finally stopped he looked around, seeing he was in a forest. No longer feeling fear, he started to walk around and trying to find his way back to the village, but after 5 minutes of walking, he started to feel at peace in the forest. It was then that he noticed he didn't feel that weird feeling in his arms and legs, and looking down he realized he was walking on all fours. Oh, that's funny, he said as he began to run around, finding it fun and more comfortable for him. He spent 2 hours in the forest just enjoying running around and didn't realize that the sun was going down, but he stopped when he heard a voice behind. Naruto-kun, what are you doing out here? Turning around he saw the Hokage in his Hokage robes, Ji-chan. He yelled as he ran to his grandfather figure. Hiruzen, however, looked a little concerned at the boy. Naruto, why are you walking like that? He asked as Naruto got in front of him. Naruto looked at the old man confused but then figured it out. I don't know why, but my arms felt weird the whole day, but it stopped feeling weird when I ran like this. Besides, it's fun. Databao, he said as he ran in circles around the Hokage and laughing. In a stern lecturing voice, he got Naruto's attention. Naruto, you need to walk on your own 2 feet, not your hands. Naruto stopped and looked distressed by this. He tried to whine about it, but a look from Hiruzen told him not to. Naruto, you can't go around like that, you must act like a normal person, which means no walking like an animal. Okay, Gigi, Naruto said as he got up and tried to steady himself. Good, now how about we go get some ramen since it has been a while since we ate together. He had to thank his many years of experience to not fall over when a yellow-haired bullet launched himself at his midsection, and with a small chuckle he shined to Ichiraku Ramen. Ichiraku Ramen stand. Once they arrived, Naruto gave his casual greeting. I am Ne-chan. Tochiji-chan. 6 bowls of chicken ramen please. Out from the back came Ayam, a young 13-year-old girl with long, dark brown hair and large black eyes. She wore a white robe with the sleeves folded up. Hey Naruto-chan, we were worried about you when the Umbu were looking for you a few days ago. She nearly screamed as she brought him into a strong hug. Hey Dad. Naruto's back. And after that, an older man came out from the back. Tucci was a very kind and jovial man with a face that looked like he didn't know how to really frown, and even though his eyes seemed to always be closed, you can always tell you had his attention. Naruto. Good to see you, alright my boy, and Hokage-sama, pleasure to see you at our establishment. He said the last part with a bow. As Naruto sat there in confusion for hearing that the Umbu were looking for him, the Hokage decided to end the conversation before more questions were asked. The pleasure is mine, Tuchi-san, and it was a small matter that was taken a bit out of proportion since for a moment, we couldn't find him, he said as he sat down looking at Iam. Naruto repeated his order after his stomach decided to get everyone at the stand and a few passers-by civilians that thought an animal was loose in the village. You sure you don't want any miso ramen? It is your favorite? Tuchi asked, a bit curious about Naruto ordering 6 bowls of the chicken ramen, and not even one of the boys' favorite, miso ramen. Yeah, I'm just really craving chicken right now, Naruto said with a big smile on his face. As he and the Hokage ate their meals, the Hokage kept an eye on Naruto as he ate and noticed that the boy had some stiff movements and some trouble holding the chopsticks. Naruto, it seems that you are having problems in your movements. I would recommend getting back to normal as quickly as possible. Naruto, looking at the Hokage with noodles stuffed in his mouth, nodded his head cause he hated feeling like this but was too lost in his ramen. Meanwhile, at the Hyuga compound, Hinata was walking to her father's office after a branch member went to fetch her. She was really nervous because her father never called her to his office unless it was a personal request or something from the Elder Council. Reaching to the door, she softly knocked and waited for permission to enter. When a stern enter was heard, she opened the door. She saw her father sitting on his knees in front of a low table with paperwork organized on each side. Walking till she was in front of the table and bowed low before she sat on the pillow set directly in front of the table and waited to be addressed. I wish for your confirmation on a certain fact that has been brought to my attention, Hayashi said without revealing any emotion on his face or his voice. Hi-o-to-san, she answered. In the academy, there is a boy by the name Naruto Uzumaki, correct? Hinata nodded her head as an answer. Well, you are to avoid any and all contact with the boy, Hayashi said, much to Hinata's shock. WWY! She exclaimed with a little more force but still not loud enough to be a shout. Hayashi, looking in his daughter's eyes, scowled slightly. This is an order from the Elder Council and I agree with the decision. The boy is nothing but trouble and you would be disgracing the clan's name if you speak to him. Hinata wanted to protest immediately, but the look on her father's face told her that this was not up for debate, and nothing she said would change this, so with her head held down she gave an hi-o-to-san, and with that she got up and left the office and headed to her room. Once she made it to her room and closed the door, she laid down on her futon, grabbed the shredded red scarf from her nightstand, and shed her silent tears while holding the scarf in her arms at the loss of a possible new friend. Naruto's apartment. Naruto had arrived at his apartment after the meal he had with the Hokage and was starting to put on his PJs and went to his bed. After laying in his bed, he couldn't get comfortable and kept tossing and turning. After 30 minutes, he tossed off the blanket and grabbed the pillow and threw them both to the corner of the room. Getting up, he began to get on his feet and went to the kitchen with his arm sliding on the wall for balance. After getting a glass of milk that still hasn't gone bad, he got back to his room but grumbled as he saw his pillow and blanket in the corner of the room next to his bed, since there was a 4-foot gap between the wall and the bed. Walking to them, he got back on all fours and grabbed the blanket, but before he picked them up he paused, since now that he was walking in a more comfortable way the tiredness finally hit him, so all he did was leave the blanket, crawled on top of the blanket and pillow, and curled up on himself much like a dog and fell asleep in a more peaceful manner and started purring. Deep in the forest just outside Konoha, we see something running through the trees with great speed. Zigzagging and dashing with some other animals joining the race, we find that it had blonde sun-kissed hair, wearing a short-sleeve orange shirt with white stripes going down the sleeves and side, beige shorts and blue sandals flailing around on his shoulders. Finally stopping close to the gate, but still hidden behind the trees, we find a now 10-year-old Naruto with a huge smile on his face. Looking behind him, he saw the small group of foxes stop behind him. With a boisterous laugh he spoke, he looks like I win again, I'll see you guys later. Waving goodbye as they left back into the forest, he pulled his sandals off his shoulders and put them back on his feet, and began to sneak through the gates, making sure not to be seen coming through. Once he reached closer to the crowded streets, he began to walk normally. It had taken him over 2 months to get back to walking on his 2 feet without tripping all the time, and although he could walk normally now, he always found it more comfortable to walk and run on all fours. He could not, however, sleep in the same bed anymore. He had fashioned himself a pile of pillows and blankets in the corner of his bedroom to sleep in, so now the bed is just for show, and even if he has gone back to acting more normal, not everything that happened to him were happy. In fact, his life only seemed to get a little bit better on some days and then worse on others. One of the things that hurt him over the 2 years was when Hinata seemed to avoid him after their first meeting, and every time he tried to talk to her he felt extreme sadness, depression, and doubt. It only made the hurt from losing his first friend even more painful. So now he just let it be and now spends his lunch on his swing. Another thing that happened was that he no longer had his dreams with Kurama. For weeks he kept hoping that when he fell asleep he would see Kurama again and tell him how his day went, or play with the fox like before, but it never happened, and it only made him feel even more lonelier than before because now he felt like he had no one even in his dreams. He had reached his apartment without much trouble apart from the glares he always got and looked at his clock and saw it was only 6:30 in the morning. Guess I should go see what Hokage Gigi wanted to talk about. Growl, maybe he will offer me breakfast again, he said as he blushed in a bit of embarrassment, and rubbing the back of his head. After putting on a clean pair of the same clothes and throwing his sandals to hang on his shoulders, he left his apartment. Going to the back alley and looking around to make sure no one saw him, he concentrated a bit before he was engulfed in a puff of smoke, and out of the smoke came a red three-tailed fox with long ears that had the inside coated black that went all the way to his blue slitted eyes. Encircling them, he only grew a bit, so he is about twice the size of puppy Akamera now. Shaking his body a bit, and making sure his sandals didn't fall off his shoulders, he looked at himself, and with his foxy grin he started running through the alleys at a decent speed. It was a year ago, when his class learned to unlock their chakra and about the 3 graduation jutsus, which were the Henge Jutsu, which was an illusionary jutsu that coats you in an illusion to alters your appearance, the Kawarimi Jutsu that allows the user to replace themselves with any object in range, and the Bunshin Jutsu which creates clone illusions, making it seem like there are more of you. Although he tried to learn the 3 as soon as possible, he could only get the Henge and Kawarimi and was terrible at the Bunshin, but it didn't stop him from trying to take the graduation exam early at the end of last school year, but he failed because of his poor academic scores and the failed Bunshin he performed, that created dead-looking clone that looked like it was melting. Even with that depressing day in his head, he kept his smile, especially when he used the Henge and Kawarimi a lot, the former more than the latter, and even though it is said that the Henge is just an illusion, Naruto's Henge were solid, making it more of a transformation than an illusion. The thing about it was that his first attempt wasn't even what he was trying to turn into. He wanted to turn into some random civilian, but when he performed it, closing his eyes from feeling a burning on his lower back, and after a minute he opened his eyes, he saw that he was a 2-tailed fox. He felt the most natural he has ever been before, but after the teacher started yelling at him and punished him with detention for a month, he chose to only do it when he was alone and no one could see him, since it became his favorite form, even if every time he does it his lower back burns. As he ran through the alleys, he made a sudden stop as he saw a ladder with a bucket of red paint on the top step with a few civilians walking towards it. Unable to help himself, he snickered and began to make his move. You should be careful around ladders, they are bad luck. He made his way to hide on the store overhang right next to the ladder and waited until the civilians walked under it. Wait for it now, and with a swift flick of his tail the bucket fell on top of 3 civilians while the bucket itself fell on the man in the middle's head, and they were not happy. What the spit's hell? Yelled one of the men. The paint is going to ruin my dress, screamed the woman. Who the hell did that? Ranted the other man. In an alley a bit of a distance away, Naruto was laughing his ass off at his prank and having a bit of payback on the 3. The woman was the owner of a clothing shop that sold him worn-out cloths at inflated prices, and the 2 men were employees at a local grocer and always kicked him out every time he came in. After his laughing fit, he knew he had to get to his Gigi before he got mad for being late to the first day of the new year at the academy, and ran even faster towards the Hokage Tower. Meanwhile, in the council chamber. We shouldn't let the Debrat continue in the academy. He will obviously corrupt the other students, yelled one of the civilian council members, with the others on the civilian council nodded their heads in agreement, while most of the members of the Shinobi Council as well as the Hokage started to get really tired of hearing the same spiel over and over again from them. The council was comprised of 4 separate factions, which were the Civilian Council, which comprised of owners of a majority of shops and marketing goods and deal with civilian interests, the Shinobi Council, which consists of the major clan heads, the Aburame, Akimichi, Hyuga, Yamanaka, Nara, and Inazuka, as they deal with shinobi affairs, the 3 council elders, which were Koharu Yuditane, an elderly woman with her gray hair done in a small bun, Hamura Mitokado, an elderly man with gray spiky hair, wearing green-framed glasses, and Danzo Shimura, an old man who had his right eye covered in bandages as well as his arm, which is also in a sling. The final faction was the Hokage himself, Hiruzen Sarutobi. You damn near say the same thing every time we have a meeting and the subject about the pup is brought up. Geez, can't you say anything other than that, said Minazuka. Sim has an animalistic look with long, spiky, untamed brown hair, vertical slit-like pupils, elongated canine teeth and nails. She also has the clan Fang markings on her cheeks as well as markings over her eyes and a dark shade of purple lipstick. She wears the standard outfit of a Konoha shinobi, consisting of flak jacket and a baggy black suit underneath with the sleeves rolled up and bandages around her legs. Che, these idiots never know when to shut up, she mumbled under her breath, but was heard by her Niken Kuramaru, who is an adult canine with a wolfish appearance with black fur and a white underside. He is missing his left ear, and wears an eye patch over his right eye. Pup has more problems than any of my kin, thought Kuramaru. It is illogical to repeat these conversations, said Shibi Aburame, who has his eyes obscured by dark glasses which feature a single tassel hanging down from one side. He has very spiky short black hair and a mustache, and wearing a high-collared outfit. Troublesome, mumbled Shikaka Nara, who had 2 scars on the right side of his face, dark hair tied up into a spiky ponytail, dark eyes as well as a goatee. His ears were also pierced. Wearing a meshed shirt underneath his standard shinobi outfit. If this is the reason that you called for this meeting, then I will end it here and now before it gets out of hand, Hiruzen said, as he rubbed his temples. Find this meeting to be useless. Hokage-sama, I believe we should discuss what should be done with the boy, said Danzo, trying again to get the Jinchuriki into his root program, which consists of ninja that have been stripped of their emotions even though Hiruzen disbanded the program years ago. Danzo wanted to turn the Jinchuriki into the perfect weapon and was extremely frustrated with the failed plan to break the boy's will during his 8th birthday, using the mission document to remove the boy's protection and have a mob attack him so he could retrieve the broken boy later. However, after the attack, none of his sensor root agents could detect the boy's chakra signature, and even when he stationed some of them to stake out the boy's usual hangout spots, they could not find him, and he thought that the attack had killed the boy and thought he had lost his weapon. But days later the boy shows up again and Hiruzen starts investigating the members of the council and increased security with Umbu loyal to the Hokage. Danzo made sure to cover all his tracks, but the civilian council member that he used to keep the Hokage busy in meetings was apprehended and tortured for information. Thankfully for him, he placed a seal on the man so he could give no information, and after a month of torture he was put to death, keeping him in the clear. However, after the event the Hokage had some precautions made, such as some more Umbu in the Hokage office and now a weekly check-in with the boy. With a hard glare Hiruzen answered his old teammate, No Danzo, we will not discuss anything about the boy. Hiruzen had a feeling that Danzo might have been part of what happened to Naruto, but with no solid evidence he could do nothing, but that doesn't mean he wasn't wary of his old teammate. Turning to the civilian council he continued, and we will not be removing him from the academy, and regardless of how much you people complain about it, it will stay this way. This meeting is adjourned. Walking out of the council chamber, Hiruzen made his way back to his office since he was expecting Naruto to show up as he had something to discuss with the boy. Hokage office 10 minutes later. With as much energy as he had, Naruto barged into the Hokage office with a big grin on his face. Morning, Gigi. The great Uzumaki Naruto has arrived. Databao. Out of shock, Hiruzen tossed up a little orange book before he quickly snatched it out of the air and hid it within his robes. Clearing his throat, he addressed his overly energetic surrogate grandson Naruto. Good to see you this morning, but I do wish you would come in a little more quietly, he said, seeing the wide grin on the boy's face. Sighing, he went straight to the point. Naruto, you will be transferring to another class this year. If Naruto was expecting anything from the Hokage, this was not one of them, and with a confused tilt of his head he asked why. The official reason is that after your failed attempt to graduate early, hearing the old man start that way made Naruto cross his arms, look away and grumble, but the real reason is that I believe the class you will be transferring to will help you out more than your previous classes. Hiruzen had wanted to put Naruto in this class after the boy's first year in the academy after finding out that the instructors were sabotaging him, but he was unable to do so since at the moment Naruto fell under the civilian jurisdiction for the most part, and students weren't allowed to transfer classes unless certain circumstances were met, and now they were. One of the reasons is that students were only allowed to transfer after the 2-year mark, and even though the council would have kept him in that class, another condition was met, unexpectedly, that gave the Hokage more say in the matter. The class he will be transferring to was comprised of clan heirs and exceptional students that got in through recommendations, and after Naruto's attempt at graduation he, in essence, had to be reinstated into the academy, and with the recommendation of the Hokage he can now attend it. Hearing what the Hokage said, Naruto perked up a bit, hearing that someone might help him. Really, yada. He started to jump up and down a bit. Calm down, Naruto, so I can give you the note you need to give to your new sensei. Stopping, standing up straight, and giving a mock salute, and a semi-serious look. Hi. This boy is testing my sanity more than this bloody paperwork ever did. Pulling out a slip of paper from the top drawer of his desk, he gave it to the boy and told him the classroom he will be part of. Hopefully your meeting with Iruka-san will be better than your first meeting. I don't think I ever met the guy, so wouldn't this be my first meeting? Naruto asked, tilting his head with a question mark popping out of it, thinking about what the Hokage said. Sweating a bit, the Hokage coughed in his hand. Yes, you are right. Sorry, Naruto, I had other things on my mind. Damn it, I'm getting too old for this. I almost let the secret slip. He watched as Naruto left his office, turning to face the window to watch Naruto leave the building, and felt dread when he saw Naruto walk into an alley and hinged into a 3-tailed fox before running through the alleys towards the academy, which wasn't very far away. Oh, please don't tell me the seal I placed is breaking. Hiruzen's mind was going a mile a second trying to think of what went wrong with the seal. Now he wasn't a seal master, In fact, he was only a decent user of them, but when he put the seal he couldn't have anyone else do it, and even when he did the seal he was really concerned that it might not work. All the seal did was pull the Kyuubi's chakra that was being used in the Yondame's seal and the boy's own chakra and make it a permanent henge, and because the boy's chakra became extremely dense it became more of a transformation jutsu that made the boy look normal as well as move normally, but when he saw the boy afterwards he noticed that it didn't completely work since Naruto couldn't walk or move normally. Now that he saw Naruto turn into the fox he feared even more for the boy. This is not good. Moving to his crystal ball he found the boy running through the alleys before he stopped close to the academy and changed back into his human form and then put his sandals back on before walking to the front gate of the academy. The seal might still be functioning correctly, and he just hangs into that form subconsciously, or it just might be a coincidence, he thought as he walked away from the crystal ball, sat down on his chair, pulling out his pipe and began to smoke to try and calm his nerves, and with a sigh, that boy is going to be the death of me. Iruka's classroom. Iruka was looking over his student roster, making sure that all his students were in the classroom, while his teaching aide Mizuki was getting the material ready, and although some of his students were not present, all the clan heirs were present. Looking at the classroom with the seats set in 3 columns and 4 rows with stairs in between the aisles, he looked over the heirs, taking note that they haven't changed much in the 2 years he has had them. The first one of note was Sasuke Uchiha, sitting in the front on the right column next to the window, the prodigy of the class and last of his clan. He never interacted with any of his fellow classmates, and ignored them as if he was superior to them, and none of them were worth his time, which was shocking to see in someone so young. The next one was Kiba Inuzuka, sitting in the second row center column, a scruffy-looking boy that had a hot-headed personality. He had just gotten his Nikken partner Akamaru not that long ago, and although he still had some trouble with the pup, they were still learning, so they would make great partners much like the rest of his clan. Sitting right next to Kiba was his friend Shino Aburame, one of his more stoic students much like the rest of his clansmen, and although he comes off as cold, it is just in the clan mannerisms, and is always willing to help out and giving some sound advice. Sitting in the third row on the left column were Choji Akimichi and Shikamaru Nara. Shikamaru was the typical Nara, lazy, but underneath that they were extremely intelligent but would rather sleep, saying it was too troublesome to do some activities. Choji was a soft-hearted boy who always had a bag of chips in his hands munching away, and like any Akimichi, never say they are fat or you will learn the hard way that the word is taboo. Looking at the front seats next to Sasuke was Ino Yamanaka, sitting with her friend/ex-friend Sakura Haruno. Ino was a platinum blonde and the gossip of the class. She loves to talk about all the latest trends going around, and if there was some sort of secret going around she would do everything she can to find out about it. She may come off as bossy and snooty, but she is really a caring girl, even if she broke her friendship with her friend Sakura for trying to get the attention of the last Uchiha. As for Sakura, she was much like Ino in terms of reasons. She also broke off her friendship with Ino as they were competing for Sasuke. What makes her different was her long pink hair held in a red bow and loud voice. At most times she can be considered polite, but when something irritates her she begins to scream and in some cases hit, but most of it is set on her former friend Ino. Speaking of broken friendships, sitting in the back in the last row in the left column by the wall all by herself was Hinata Hyuga. Iruka had seen how she interacted with Naruto during the incident, and when they met again at the school, he thought that they would have a strong friendship, but the day after that, Hinata began to avoid the boy, and what he thought would become a bond between the two had died before it even started, and from what he saw it hurt both of them. Hearing a knock at the classroom door, he shook his head of thoughts and walked to open it. Meanwhile, with Naruto just outside the classroom. To say that Naruto was nervous was an understatement. He never really liked meeting new people in the village because every time they saw him he always felt extremely distressed and agitated, but he always hoped that he might meet someone that doesn't make him feel that way. Taking a deep breath, he knocked on the door and waited for the teacher to open the door. As the door opened, he saw a dark skin-toned man with a scar that went across his nose, and when the instructor saw him he got that bad feeling, not much but it was there, and somehow knew he would be just like the other instructors. Pushing the thought aside, he handed the slip to the teacher, who was still in a state of surprise. Iruka didn't expect to see the boy he was just thinking about, but quickly gained his wits when he read the slip of paper with the details about the transfer that he actually forgot that the Hokage told him about it 2 years ago. Telling the boy to wait until he is called and he goes back to the front of the class. "May I have everyone's attention?" he said, but the students kept talk amongst themselves. Everyone. Still nothing. And with a sigh he uses his own personal jutsu, the big head jutsu. Everyone shut up, and with that they all became quiet and gave Iruka their attention. "Okay everyone, it seems we have a new student joining us today, you can come in now." Naruto walked in a bit nervously until he stood next to Iruka. "Well, go ahead and introduce yourself," Iruka told him as he took a breath and gave his introduction. "My name is Naruto Uzumaki, and I'm going to be the Hokage Dadabayo," he said as he regained some confidence, but he didn't expect the entire class, save for a few to start laughing at him, which really dampened his spirits. What an idiot, thinking he could be Hokage. What kind of introduction was that, haha? What was that he said at the end of his sentence, ha ha ha? Looking around, he noticed that some of the others weren't laughing, such as a platinum-haired girl, a boy wearing sunglasses, a boy that was taking a nap, the boy sitting next to him eating chips, but the last one made him a little more depressed. It was Hinata. She looked at him for a second before turning her head and looking away. Looking down, he lifted his head to look at the other instructor, and saw that he was sneering at him, and just decided to keep his head down so he didn't have to look at anyone. Quiet. Okay, Naruto, find an empty seat to take, and with that Naruto made his way to the back next to the window where no one was sitting and just sat there with his head laying down on his arms, tilted so he could stare out the window. Irika, seeing this, kinda felt bad for the boy but decided to leave him alone for now and started to do his lecture. During their lunch break, Naruto was found swinging on his swing under his tree, thinking to himself, if this was what was going to happen, maybe I should have just skipped class like I did before. So lost in thought he didn't notice someone walking to the side of his swinging. Maybe I should go and see if there are any pranks I could dash. You know, if you go too high you might fall and hurt yourself, spoke a female voice. So shocked about the voice, he let go of the swing as he was at the high point of his forward swing and fell to the ground face first. Slam mphm, he screamed, and then gave a muffled grumbles as his head ended up buried in the ground with his legs flailing around. Giggle. Hearing a girl giggle, he pulled his head out of the ground and looked at the newcomer. It was the platinum blonde girl that is in his class, and she was trying to hide her giggles at the ridiculous scene she just saw. I told you. My daddy told me about it before. Looking at the girl, he realized that the girl wasn't really making fun of him. She was just laughing because what he just did was funny and he didn't feel bad around her. Sorry. I never knew about that, he said, a bit embarrassed, rubbing the back of his head. Hi, my name is Naruto. After a few seconds the girl stopped laughing and with a hand stretched out, she introduced herself. Hi Naruto, I'm Yamanaka. Ino, shaking her hand, he couldn't help but notice something. You kinda smell like flowers. Blushing a bit at the spontaneous compliment, Ino shook her head. That's because my family owns a flower shop and I help out a lot. Hearing this, Naruto got really excited. Really? That's so cool. Do you know the flower that is purple on the inside with the white tip and the yellow Athena things? Ino paused for a second to think about the flower. It sounds like you are talking about purple tiger lilies. If you want, you can over to my family shop to see if that is what you are talking about. But how do you know about them? Naruto started to jump up and down in excitement for a bit before he spoke again. I know about them because I found some in the forest and thought they smelled really pretty. And do you really mean that I can go to your shop? Ino had to giggle a bit more at the energy that the blonde boy had. Yeah, you can come whenever you want. The two blondes spent the rest of the break talking about flowers, which consisted of Naruto describing the flowers that he found and Ino giving the names of flowers, what they meant and how to take care of them. And so, a new friendship was made. 1 week later, after school, Naruto was walking through the streets of Konoha with a smile on his face as he was heading towards the Yamanaka flower shop. After a week in the new class, he had made a few new friends. The first two he made were Shikamaru and Choji, who were introduced to him by Ino since their fathers were friends. Shikamaru was easy to get along with since they both took naps during class, Shikamaru because he said it was too troublesome to pay attention, and Naruto because he subconsciously thought he wouldn't be getting any help in understanding the material and learning properly, so there was no point paying attention. He really got along with Choji when they all went to Ichiraku and ended up have a competition on how many bowls they could eat, and even if Naruto knew he would not be able to buy anything else for a while with the little amount of money he got from his monthly stipend, he really had fun with Choji. Another friend he made was Shino. When he saw several bugs walking on his, Naruto, arm, and all he did was watch them crawl on his arms until Shino spoke, telling him they enjoyed eating his chakra. The conversation became one where Naruto asked about the beetles and Shino telling him how they are used in his clan jutsus. His final friend was Kiba, although it was more like a friendly rivalry. When the first interacted, Akamaru growled at him with a challenging glare, for a puppy, and Naruto unconsciously returned both of them. After a few seconds, Akamaru bowed a bit and began to attack the boy, much to Kiba's confusion. Kiba had trouble with Naruto since to him he had a small smell of fox, and with Akamaru's bowing scene, Naruto just didn't sit well with him, so he challenged him to races a lot, but after having an even win-lose ratio they got along a bit better, but they always tried to one-up each other. He continued to walk through the streets deep in thought, only vaguely aware of the glares and words thrown his way. Look at that demon looking so happy and walking around. Do you think it's plotting something? We should do something, before it gets the chance to do it. Look! It's going to the Yamanaka shop, we should wait till it leaves. As Naruto entered, he met up with Ino's mother, Noriko Yamanaka. She has pupilless light brown eyes and brown hair which is tied into a bun with a red ribbon in it with strands framing both sides of her face, hanging over her ears from behind them. She has fair skin, and wearing a dark teal elegant dress, which had an aquamarine-colored gem below the collar. Good afternoon. Welcome to the Yamanaka Naruto-kun. It's nice to see you again, she said in a very polite tone as she turned around to see who came in. Hi Yamanaka-san, I wanted to get the lilies that Ino said she would set up for me, Naruto said with a bow. Since the first time he met her she told him it's better to be polite to people when you are asking for something, trying to instill some manners into the young boy. Thinking for a second, Noriko remembered that her daughter had made an order for someone to pick up around this time. So you are the one that made the order. Okay, please give me a second as I go retrieve them. Walking to the back of the store, she found the potted plant ready for pickup and brought it back to Naruto. Here you go, dear. Now do you still have that book I gave you on how to take care of them? Seeing the boy nod, she couldn't help but smile at the happy energetic boy and handed him the plant as he handed her the money for it since he opted to pay upon pickup. Thank you Yamanaka-san, I promise to take real good care of them, he said with a smile and walked out the shop with the plant in his hands. As he walked out his smile was so bright that he could replace the sun, especially with his sun-kissed blonde hair. So happy that he didn't even notice the ever-growing mob of civilians behind him and followed him as he entered an alley to get home faster since it was on the other side of the village in the red light district. He walked through the alley for a few more minutes until he was hit on the back of the head, but as he fell he was able to hold tight to the pot and spun, so he fell on his back. Looking up he finally noticed the mob that found him in the alley, and from past experiences he knew what they wanted, so he got on his feet and ran with the plant held closely to his chest. Passing through alleys yelling for help, Naruto made sure that anything that was thrown at him would not hit his new plant, but his luck seemed to end when he got to a dead end. Now he knew that they would hurt him, but a small bit of a protective instinct told him he needed to keep the plant safe, so he ran to face the corner with the plant in his arms as the mob got ready to start beating on him. As the mob were about to start, everyone heard a voice from above them, Senai Jashu. Afterwards, 3 men that were about to attack were wrapped up by snakes, shocking the rest of them. Landing in between Naruto and the mob was Anko Mitarashi, who saw the mob chasing the boy while she left the dango shop and in anger chased after them from the rooftops. Anko is a fairly tall woman who has a slender frame with light brown, pupilless eyes. Her purple hair is styled in a short, spiky ponytail, wearing a mesh bodysuit that covers her from her neck down to her thighs, a tan overcoat with pockets on each side, a dark orange miniskirt, a dark blue belt, pale gray shin guards, a hitai wrapped on her forehead, and a small pendant that looks like a fawn. Look, it's the snake whore, yelled one of the men. It figures that she would protect the demon. A monster protecting a monster, sneered another male. We should take this chance to get rid of them both, said a woman in the crowd. Anko, pissed that this group would sink so low as to attack a kid, would have incinerated the mob with a katon jutsu, but deciding not to, seeing that they will be getting their punishment in a few seconds. I wouldn't get your hopes up since you guys are about to be dealt with, she said with a smirk as she pointed behind the mob. As they all turned to see what Anko was pointing at, they all gaped at the Umbu squad standing behind them. All of you are under arrest for attempted assault on a minor and a tokubetsu jonin. Before any of them could make a move, they were all hit in the back of the neck and collapsed unconscious. Anko, seeing that they were dealt with, turned back to the kid who was still facing the corner. Hey, it's alright, they won't hurt you anymore. Seeing that it was the same kid she heard got attacked by a mob before, one she dealt punishment to, she couldn't help but feel bad for the kid, since like him she was also treated badly by the villagers because of something beyond her control. Turning to the woman, Naruto saw that the mob was being taken away. Thank you, Nei-chan, for saving me and Tilly. Anko looked around but saw no one else and asked, Tilly? Naruto brought up the potted tiger lily and said, yeah, Tilly. I wanted to name it since it will be staying at my house from now on. Chuckling at how the kid acted, Anko made a decision that she would try to watch out for the kid when she could, since throughout all that he went through, he could still smile like nothing happened. Okay kid, my name is Anko, how about I take you home? And with a smile Naruto responded, hi Anko Nichan, I'm Naruto Uzumaki and I'm going to be the future Hokage Databale. Konoha never looked better to Hiruzen than it does right now. The sky was the brightest blue, the clouds were the purest white, and the birds were chirping. Hiruzen was enjoying the sight as he looked upon the streets as he was standing on the roof of the Hokage Tower and smoking his pipe. Today has to be the most perfect day I have had in a long time. All the paperwork is done, no issues from the council, no meetings, and the civilians are going about their business as normal, he thought as he gave a relaxed sigh and smiling. Naruto! Get back here, you rotten brat! How dare you do that to the Hokage monument? Hiruzen's peaceful moment was disrupted by the shouts of several of his shinobi jumping from the rooftops, and the laughing of his surrogate grandson. Looking at the jumping group of 5 shinobi and academy students, Hearing what they said, he turned around to look at the Hokage monument, and just stared at the Hokage's faces. How did he even do any of that when there is a security team that patrols above it, in front of it, and on the outer walls which have the perfect view of it? The faces carved into the mountain that make the Hokage monument were painted with different joking faces. The first Hokage had its eyes painted to look like it was winking, teeth painted to look like a smile and a big smile with a shine on them, and a painted hand next to it giving a thumbs up. Oh Kami, why did he have to choose that face? Thankfully Guy is at the moment out on a mission, he thought with a shiver. The second Hokage had googly eyes and tongue sticking out with the word fool written on the forehead, a very big contrast to how he was in person, he thought with a chuckle. The third Hokage's face was painted with a big goofy smile and perverted eyes with a painted blush and nose bleed, and on closer inspection on the base of the beard was a small message saying sorry Gigi. He couldn't help but chuckle. At least he left that message, but why did he make me look like a pervert? He thought with anime tears streaming down his face. The fourth Hokage was the most interesting as it had 3 whisker marks on each of its cheeks, a foxy grin, and eyes painted to look like they are closed. Could it have been any more ironic that he chose the fourth to do that too? And Naruto aims to surpass you, Minato. As he turned back to the village and seeing Naruto outrun his shinobi and several of his umbu like it was a simple task, Hiruzen couldn't help but think you are truly unpredictable, both in your actions and the way your life has become. Naruto continued to hope from rooftop to rooftop, outrunning the high-ranking shinobi while laughing and taunting them. Are you even trying to catch me? Cause this is too easy, he said as he threw a paintball at them, hitting one of the umbu. You're gonna regret that when we catch you, you brat, yelled the umbu as he wiped some of the paint off his mask. Let's try harder, Naruto said as he pulled down on his eyelid, stuck out his tongue and tossed the smoke bomb to the ground. Ayo, what the hell, my eyes burn. And why the hell am I so itchy? What the hell did he put in that smoke? Screamed one of the Jonin chasers while the rest of the group agreed and started to scratch themselves furiously. Better question. Where is that little gremlin? I'm going to hogtie him and drag him to the Hokage after this, the umbu leader said as he noticed that the boy was gone. Spread out. Find him, he said as they all jumped into different directions in search of the boy. Down below on street level was a 3-tailed fox, a bit smaller than 12-year-old normal Naruto, laughing as he looked at the shinobi get further away. Yet again I win. Umbu, 11, Naruto, 163 foot. As he calmed down his laughing and started walking away, he was about to leave the area until he was grabbed by the scruff of his neck and then brought up face to face with Iruka. Naruto, what do you think you're doing? You are supposed to be in class right now. Instead, I find you causing problems yet again for the umbu and desecrating the Hokage monument. Hearing a few grumbles from the fox, he continued after class, you are going to clean up the monument until all the mess you made is gone, as well as give an apology to the umbu squad that were chasing you. Naruto begins to struggle. Whine, don't give me that. You caused it, so you must be punished for it. Now undo the henge so we can get back to class. Iruka finished. I really wish you would stop doing that henge. It's dangerous in this village, he thought as he dropped the fox, who then became engulfed in a poof of smoke. Standing there was 12-year-old Naruto in an orange jumpsuit that had a white collar with blue encircling his shoulders, a white swirl with a tassel on the left side, and a red Uzumaki crest on the back. He stood there with his arms crossed as he mumbled, how the heck do you keep finding me that easily? Iruka gave an amused smile as he patted the boy on his back to move him forward. Don't worry about that, let's go, so we can get to your punishment faster. And with that, they began to walk back to the academy. We will be able to make it just in time for the start of history of Konohagakure. Hearing this just made Naruto grumble even more. Iruka, 244, me 0. Damn it. Iruka's classroom. Naruto was back in the class, trying to listen to the history of the shinobi. Well, at least he would if he wasn't sleeping through the lesson. When he got back to class, almost everyone, through chuckles, began to ask how he painted the monument, and all he said with a cocky grin was, I'm just that awesome, although not everyone gave a somewhat positive response. Flashback. As Naruto was walking through the class to his seat, he heard a voice that grated his nerves. You shouldn't waste time on something so stupid, dope. He couldn't help but stop to retort at the one responsible, like you could do better, team. No way you could even get close to doing something as awesome as that, he said as he stared at Sasuke Uchiha, someone he could never and will never get along with. Naruto hated Sasuke for his high and mighty attitude, expected everyone to bow down at his feet and give him everything that he wanted, something that made Naruto sick to his stomach as he believed that everything should be earned and never given just cause you demand it. It was bad from their first interaction, which was when Naruto was staring at Sasuke's head and said, look, the duck on Sasuke's head just wiggled its tail. Safe to say it only got worse as time went on. Why would I waste my time trying to one-up you? I already know that you aren't anything special, just a clanless loser that doesn't deserve to be a shinobi, he said with a cocky smirk on his face. With that said, Naruto jumped onto the desk facing Sasuke, glaring straight into his eyes. It became a glaring contest with everyone in the classroom cheering for a fight, with a lot of them telling Sasuke to beat up the dope. Iruka was about to use his big head jutsu until heard Naruto start to speak in a low tone but loud enough for everyone to hear. You may think that you are special just because you are the holy Uchiha, but you are nothing more than a spoiled brat who doesn't deserve anything you got. Why don't you live the life of someone who has to struggle every day for a bit, and see how long you last without your status? And with that, he jumped off the desk and walked back to his seat. As he was walking, Sakura, who was standing a few feet away, walked up to Naruto with her fist raised. Naruto baka, how dare you speak to Sasuke-kun like that? He winced from the loud tone of the girl before he saw the fist aimed for his head. Before the fist made contact, he used Kawarimi to replace himself with Sasuke. Bang, and with that Sasuke was slammed into the ground, much to his fangirl's dismay and a few others' amusements. Naruto just jumped out of Sasuke's seat and went to his seat in the back and laid his head down for a nap, unaware of a Hinata watching him with a smile on her face. Naruto-kun. Flashback end. Naruto was woken up with some harsh shaking. Opening his eyes, he saw that it was Ino standing next to his desk with an angry look on her face. Did you have to start that fight with Sasuke-kun? She said as she tapped her foot. Burying his face into his arms with a groan, I didn't start it, Ino-chan. You saw it, so you know I didn't, he said, though it was slightly muffled. Ino huffed cause she knew that she couldn't retort to what Naruto just said. Well, anyway, class is over and Iruka-sensei said you have to meet him at the gate right now, she said with a shake of her head. Once again Naruto groans, damn it. I don't want to clean up the paint, he whined as he got up and walked towards the door with his shoulders slumped. With a roll of her eyes, she walked in front of him with her hands on her hips and her ponytail swaying behind her. If you didn't want to clean it, you shouldn't have done it, she scolded him, but in her head, she was chuckling at the prank because she also thought it was funny. Naruto had his eyes following the swaying ponytail as it went back and forth. Still don't wanna, he said before he shook his head and started to walk faster to meet up with Iruka. Anyway, I'd better go do it, so I'll see ya later, Ino-chan, and when they made it outside he ran off. Ino shook her head at his childish behavior. Baka, she said with a smile before she remembered something and shouted out, Naruto, don't forget about your order, it is ready for pickup whenever you want. Looking back as he ran, he yelled back, thanks Ino-chan. I'll pick them up when I can. And turned back and ran faster to the academy gates. Hokage Monument. 25 minutes later. You know this would go faster if you helped me, he grumbled. Naruto was hanging by a rope wrapped around his waist, a bucket of cleaning liquid attached to high ship and a scrubber in his hand as he tried to remove the paint on the monument. Looking down from the ledge above Naruto, Iruka looked at his dangling student. This is a punishment, Naruto, not volunteer work, so you must be the one to clean it. Hearing grumbles and complaints from the boy, he decided to at least lift his spirits a bit. When you finish this up, I'll take you to Ichiraku's afterward. And with a big smile on his face, Naruto doubles his efforts just to get to his ramen faster. Ichiraku ramen. 3 hours later. Naruto was slurping up the last of his 13th bowl of chicken ramen with a big smile on his face. Ah, that hit the spot, he said as he pats his somewhat inflated stomach. Iruka just watched the boy as he had finished his first bowl a little bit ago and knew that it would be better not to spend it on a second bowl. I still can't believe that all you ever eat is ramen. You should really eat things other than that. I would try and tell you not to listen to something like that, but I do have to say that it would be better for you to eating something else once in a while, said Ayam as she came back to the counter with the check. Looking at the two, Naruto gave his foxy grin. But I do eat other things. I go hunting on my own a lot in the forest and get some berries, apples, and fish. Both of them were shocked hearing this, but Iruka was worried as he didn't know that Naruto had been going to the forest. Naruto, you shouldn't be going to the forest. It's dangerous to go out there without anyone with you. Naruto just turned to Iruka with his smile dropping a bit. But I've been doing it for like 3 years, I think, since a lot of stores kick me out when I come in. I am seeing Naruto's mood drop a bit, walked around the counter and pulled him into a hug. On Naruto, you shouldn't feel bad about this. We are just worried about you, so stop all those negative thoughts, or I will rub your whiskers again, she said with a small giggle at feeling Naruto stiffen a bit at the rubbing whiskers part. A week after the Anbu came looking for the boy, Naruto had wobbled into the stand and tripped onto the ground and gave a frustrated groan. Ayam got to her knees thinking that he was hurt, only to see that he wasn't injured, but Naruto told her that he was having a really hard time walking. It got so bad that he was about to cry a bit, but Ayam picked up the boy and put him on her lap and hugged the boy, as well as wiped the tears off his cheeks with her thumb, and much to her shock, he began to purr as she did it. He liked it so much that he didn't even realize he was doing it, and leaned into her hand as she continued to rub his whiskers. It was only after she stopped that he realized he purred and didn't know why, but before he could say anything she started to do it again, and after a few minutes of it he fell asleep on her lap. Ayam couldn't help but smile at how cute the boy was. After he woke up, he told her not to do it again before he left, although she never promised she wouldn't do it again. Ayam Nachan, please don't do that. It's really embarrassing and I don't want anyone else to know about that, he grumbled with a small blush on his face. Irika, confused about what it was but not wanting to pry, decided to speak up. Ahem, Naruto, you should head home soon. It's late, and you should get some rest for the graduation exam tomorrow. Eyes shooting open as big as dinner plates, he looked at his sensei. What? That's tomorrow? Irika gave him a deadpan expression, not believing the kid. Naruto, you should keep track of these things, and if you didn't sleep through my class you would have known about this, and I really hope that you have been studying for the written test and practicing your jutsu. Rubbing the back of his head, he sheepishly nodded. Yeah, I have been practicing to do it every night, he said, not mentioning that he hasn't studied at all, but at least he has been practicing his clone jutsu. Nodding his head, Irika left the money for the meal. Good, you should do fine with it then. I look forward to giving you your hitai tomorrow, he said as he waved goodbye and started walking home. Naruto, watching his sensei, couldn't help but sigh. I really hope I can make it work tomorrow, especially after all the time Irika-sensei spent helping me with the jutsu, he thought, heading out of the stand. I am seeing how Naruto was acting, decided to give him one more hug. It's okay, Naruto, you will get it right this time. Just focus on what you need to do and it will work, she said as she began to rub his whisker for a few seconds to make him feel better. Hugging her back, Naruto was grateful to Ayam for looking out for him. Thanks, Ayam Machan. Per breaking the hug with a blush, he gave his goodbye as he made his way home. Naruto's apartment. Naruto, now home, cleaned and in his pajamas with his goofy nightcap, was heading to his bedroom. Heading to his little sleeping corner, he paused for a second before deciding, I think I will sleep in my little sanctuary tonight. Grabbing a broom and walking to the center of his bedroom, he used the broom handle to poke a certain spot on the ceiling, which caused a piece of it tied to a small rope to fall where he poked. Pulling on the rope, a piece of the ceiling was pulled with it, showing an attic-like area. Crouching on all fours, he hopped up, grabbing the ledge and pulled himself up. In the area was a selection of plants all around the room, which is about half the size of his bedroom, and a really low ceiling, enough room for him to walk on all fours. He found this area on accident when he first tried using an enhanced jump used for roof hopping and hit his head really hard in the center of his bedroom and made a hole. Afterward, he used a chair and some boxes he had found out. After a lot of falling, he saw that the area was an empty area that separates his ceiling and the roof. After some thinking, he made this a little corner for himself, and a place to put his growing collection of plants and flowers that he got from Ino's family shop and from the forest. He had cut a hole on the slanted wooden portion of the Hokage to get him a window for the hole, making an excuse saying it was a replacement for a broken window, and making a door out of spare wood he had. After some time it became his little bit of nature, and he found himself often sleeping in it, so he had made another sleeping area, next to the window. He never had to worry about the landlord finding out, since the man didn't even check up on the apartment, and the rent was paid for through the stipend. Making sure to close the door to his nature's corner, he walked on all fours to the pillow and blanket, removing his pajamas so he is just in his boxers, and moved under the blanket, curled up on the pillow and began to think. Rama-san, I wish you were still here to talk to. I'm really nervous about tomorrow. What if I fail again like the last 2 times? What I don't graduate with my friend? I miss having you around. And with that last thought, he fell asleep. Irika's class the next morning. Naruto was actually really early to class this day because he was extremely nervous and sat in the second row, third column. He had been trying to get his nerves to calm down, but with everyone else in the class being just as nervous, it was worse. Like he felt everyone's nervousness added to his own. It's okay, it's okay, it's okay, breath, I can do this, I can do this, it's just another step to becoming Hokage, and you won't let anything stop you, he thought, trying to calm himself. Geez, I can smell the stress rolling off you. Turning his head to see who it was, he saw it was Kiba. Yeah, whatever, mutt, I'm just excited to get my Hittite and become a genin, he said with his normal bravado. Ha, if you can become a genin, that it should be a breeze for me and Akamaru, arf, Kiba said with his puppy Akamaru that was on top of his head to bark in agreement. Looking at Kiba, he stood face to face with him. Please, I'll breeze through it so quickly, you'll be eating my dust in your dog bowl. Both growling at each other in their own way for a few seconds until Naruto stopped as he heard them coming. Unzipping his jacket a bit and reaching into the inner pocket, he pulled out 2 sets of earplugs and a small pair of ear mufflers. Giving the second pair of earplugs and ear muffler to Kiba, who took them and put the plugs in his ears and put the mufflers on Akamaru, Naruto put in his pair and looked towards the door, waiting for them to come through. A few seconds later they ran through the door. When I no pig no way forehead, I obviously won. Sakura and Ino had barged in after another one of their races to see who would sit next to Sasuke. They had been doing this for the 2 years that he had been in the class and learned really quickly about the shouting, hurting his ears, and it only got worse as time went on as his hearing kept improving for an unknown reason. Thud. As the two kept arguing, they stopped when they heard a loud thud and turned to see Naruto with his hands over his ears, wincing in pain from the shouts. Ino's shouting he could handle a bit since it was muffled, but Sakura had some sort of pitch that hurt even if it came in muffled from the earplugs. Ino feeling a bit guilty, as she knew his hearing was good, and Sakura just huffing, thinking he was just showing off. Behind him at the final row was Hinata, looking worriedly at the boy and wanting nothing more to go to him and see if he was alright and needed help. For 4 years she had obeyed the order to stay away from him, but she regretted it every day and was close to just ignoring it and be friends with him once again, but was too afraid to do it, so she just watched him from a distance, seeing how he pushed himself hard to get something right and smile at the world regardless of anything bad happening, as she saw a few times. She started moving to go to him, but when she saw Kiba patting him on the back and Akamaru licking his face, she sat back in her seat looking down at her desk. Naruto-kun. As all this was happening, Sasuke got to the doorway to see Ino and Sakura standing there. "You're in my way," he said in an annoyed tone, and moved forward as they moved out of his way. As he made his way to his seat, he looked towards Naruto, who was rubbing his ears to ease the pain. Dobe, he thought as he sat down and crossed his fingers in front of his face and just sat there ignoring everyone. Naruto was standing outside with the rest of the class as he waited for his name to be called for the Shuriken Jutsu. He felt like he did okay on the written exam and was a little more confident about this portion of the exam. All of his friends apart from Ino, who haven't gone yet, passed the Shuriken Jutsu, although Shikamaru only got the 6 out of 10, which was the bare minimum to pass. Sasuke was called up, and as he walked to the starting point, as all his fangirls started cheering for him, much to Naruto's dismay as he began to roll on the ground holding his ears. Naruto didn't even pay attention to Sasuke's score as he was clenching his eyes, as every time he threw his projectile the fangirls kept screaming until Kiba and Ino were able to get his attention and pointed at Naruto's pair of earplugs that Kiba was able to get from his pocket, which he quickly swiped them and put them in, and although he still heard the loud noise, he could watch the rest of Sasuke's exam. After Sasuke finished, he walked back like it was nothing. He looked at Naruto and sneered, "Beat that dobe," and then walked past him. Naruto didn't even know what the Uchiha score, so he wouldn't even know what to beat, but when he thought of it, he felt like he should do his best just so he could pass. Walking to the starting mark, ignoring the jeering and booing him, but thankfully he still had his earplugs still in his ears, so he didn't hear a thing from them except for a pink-haired girl that kept screaming what she was saying. Once he made it and got the practice pouch with the shuriken and kunai meant for the test, he took a deep breath and looked at the 4 target dummies. He grabbed 3 shurikens in each hand and swinging his right arm, tossing the first 3 towards one of the test dummies, and 2 hitting fatal points, 1 in the neck and another hitting the forehead and the 3rd hitting the leg area. Seeing the first throw done, he swung his left arm in the same manner, getting almost the same hits for the second dummy apart from the 3rd hitting the second dummy's stomach area. After his first 2 throws, he decided to finish up his shuriken throws, putting the last 4, 2 in each hand. He threw them at the same time in a crisscross manner at the last 2 dummies. The first dummy was hit in both shoulders by 2 shurikens, and the other dummy was hit in the heart and missed the last one. He pulled out his 5 kunai from the practice pouch and tossed them one at a time, with each hitting his intended target, 1 in the head, 1 in each shoulder parallel to each other, 1 in the stomach and 1 in the center of all 4. Sighing a bit as he was able to do good on this, and turned around just to see everyone looking at him like he grew 2 extra heads. "What?" He saw Iruka was speaking, but he heard nothing and just stood there looking at his sensei. After a few more seconds, his mind finally caught up with him and pulled out his earplugs, which caused everyone to face fault at his action. "Naruto Baka, you must have cheated. There is no way you could have gotten better than Sasuke-kun," ranted Sakura, making Naruto wish he didn't take out his earplugs. Iruka, who regaining his composure as well and cleared out his hearing with his pinky finger, turned towards Naruto. "Naruto, I have to ask, how did you get that good in Shuriken Jutsu?" Naruto looked at his sensei. "I used kunai for fishing a lot and kept practicing when they hopped out of the water, and for shuriken, I used them to get apples from trees that are too tall for me to grab, back when I couldn't use the chakra jump." Iruka had to nod his head a bit, understanding that the moving target of fish would help improve accuracy and make it easy to hit a stationary target, and hitting a small target like an apple doing the same thing. "Well done, Naruto. In terms of score, you got 2nd place, but you were the only one to throw multiple shuriken at a time and made them evenly separated." Hearing that he got 2nd place put a smile on his face, but it dropped quickly. Hearing he fangirls saying that the Dobes shouldn't have gotten that score so close to their Sasuke-kun, he just shook his head and went to take a seat with his friends, and saw that Ino was next. "Good luck, Ino-chan," he said to the girl who just gave him a wave. Naruto gave a sigh, thinking the Academy Jutsu exam was next. "I have to do it right this time, not only to graduate with everyone but because it's my last chance," he thought, thinking back at his 2nd attempt that he was goaded into it by the team who kept pushing his buttons. Iruka's class. 25 minutes later. Naruto felt like he was about to have a panic attack, sweating bullets and shaking his leg. Staring at the door, to him, hearing everyone being called seemed like a countdown to his doom. After a few more minutes he was called into the exam room, and so he went to the room he dreaded. Walking into the room he stood in front of Irika and Mizuki. Okay Naruto-kun, the first jutsu you need to perform is the henge jutsu, and please keep it human. After hearing this from Irika, Mizuki looked at him in a bit of confusion. What do you mean, Irika? Turning to his teaching aide, Irika answered, Naruto turned himself into bears and tigers before in several of his pranks. He then gave Naruto a deadpan look. You even scared off a few of my years when you walked up to me looking like a lion ready to pounce on me to make me lunch. Naruto looking sheepish and chuckled, rubbing the back of his head. Sorry about that, Irika-sensei. Okay, I will keep it human. Nodding his head, Irika grabbed his clipboard and pen ready to give his marks. Okay Naruto, go ahead. Naruto thought about who to change into until he was engulfed in a poof of smoke, and out of it came Naruko, a very curvy woman with high C-cup breasts, I think, tan skin and long blonde hair tied up in pigtails. But what got the two men was that she was naked with small puffs of smoke hiding her and lower region. I didn't think I would need to write this kind of thing, but oh well, hope it's okay. After seeing this, the two men were launched backward from massive nosebleeds. After they stuffed tissues into their nose, they got back up to reprimand the boy, only to stand up straighter when they saw the third Hokage standing there. Sir, Irika said as Mizuki began to sweat. With the third Hokage here, I must say I am disappointed in the two of you. How could you fall for something like that, such a simple technique? The third said, getting Irika to look down in shame until he heard the third start to laugh. Looking up, he saw that the third was on his knees, slamming his fist into the ground trying to catch his breath. Irika had never seen the elder Hokage give this kind of action before and was shocked when the Hokage was engulfed in smoke, showing Naruto in his place still laughing and gasping for air. With a big tick mark popping on his head, Irika moved to hit Naruto on his head from the prank he did during the exam. Naruto, this isn't a game, he said as he lifted his head, bringing it down to Naruto's head, but much to his shock he didn't hit Naruto, he hit Mizuki. Naruto felt the fist coming to his head and used the kawarimi to switch with Mizuki, and now sat in Mizuki's seat and laughed, even more, seeing Irika hitting Mizuki. Seeing Irika turn back to him, and seeing that he was still angry, he sat there until Irika got up right next to him. Naruto, you have to take this exam seriously, Irika said, about to slap Naruto this time. Mizuki was groaning after getting blindsided by the fist. Picking himself up from the ground, he was shocked once again when he felt the back of his head being slapped hard enough to force his face into the desk. Irika just blinked at this and for a few seconds stood there looking at the groaning Mizuki, and then realized that Naruto just did two kawarimi one after another. Sighing, he turns to Naruto, who was still chuckling. Well, Naruto, looks like you did both the henge and kawarimi very well, I might add, he said, and quietly mumbled the last part with a blush. Anyway, you just need to do the clone jutsu and you will pass. Hearing this, Naruto stopped his chuckles and now felt really worried. Seeing the two back in their seats, he began to concentrate. Okay, I can do this. You are able to do the other two easily, so I can do this one too. Please work, he thought as he closed his eyes, put his hands into a hand sign and focused on the jutsu. After a dark purple chakra faintly swirled around Naruto, a puff of smoke appeared next to Naruto. Opening his eyes in hopes of seeing himself standing next to him, he was disappointed greatly, seeing a white, dead and melting clone that barely looked like him. No. Turning to the instructors, he saw the disappointed look on Irika. I am sorry, Naruto-kun, but because of your scores on the written exam, you fail. Irika could see how destroyed the boy was on the inside, but he could not show favoritism and pass him just because he liked the boy. Come on, Irika, surely we could bend the rules a bit and pass the kid. I mean, he did do his best on the exam, said Mizuki, giving what Naruto could tell was a fake smile. Turning to Mizuki, Irika said with a frown, I'm sorry, Mizuki, but we can't do that no matter who it is. It isn't right or fair to the other students. And with a sigh, he turned to Naruto. Naruto, I'm sore, only to see that Naruto had already left the classroom. 15 minutes later, outside at Naruto's tree, Naruto just sat there on his swing, away from all the parents congratulating their kids on passing, but he could still hear some of them talking about him. Look, it's him. Good thing he didn't pass. I mean, what were they even thinking letting it into the academy with our kids? I know, he should never have been allowed. Hearing this and other comments of similar nature kept getting on Naruto's nerve. Why the hell do they keep acting like I'm nothing but a monster and just here to corrupt their kids? What did I even do to them? Why should I go through this? Why me, huh? Why? Naruto? Hearing this, he whipped his head around just to see Ino and surprisingly Hinata looking at him with worried looks in their eyes. They were quiet until Ino spoke up. Are you okay? Seeing the Hitaei they both wore, Hinata wearing hers loosely around her neck and Ino wearing hers as a belt, he turned away to take a deep breath and turned back with his usual grin. Yeah, I'm fine. I just have to try again next year. Seeing the shift, Ino furled her eyebrows. No. You're not fine, Naruto. You look like someone threw away one of your ramen cups. Ino jokes, since she knew about Naruto's love for ramen. Naruto just got up from the swing, smile still on his face. It's alright, you too, I'm fine. I was just thinking about how I'm going to handle another year at the academy. Turning away, he started to walk away anyway. You should go to your families and celebrate your graduation. Don't waste your time hanging around me. Hearing this, Hinata couldn't help herself. Naruto-kun. Seeing that, Naruto stopped and turned his head to look at her. She gave a deep bow. I'm sorry. Not sure what she was really apologizing for, whether it be from ignoring him or his failure. It didn't really matter, as he just gave a smile and waved it's okay Hinata-chan, and then just continued to walk away. As the girls watched the boy leave, they both had the same thought. I'm sorry, Naruto-kun / Naruto. Leaving the two behind, Naruto just walked past the gate ready to head home until he was stopped by a hand on his shoulder. Looking behind him, he saw that it was Mizuki. He never liked the teaching aide, the guy always felt wrong to him, and he still felt that way even now. Hey Naruto, I wanted to talk to you about something. Mizuki smiled at the boy. What is it, Mizuki-sensei? Naruto asked as he turned to the man. I actually wanted to tell you that there is still a way to graduate with the rest of your class. Seeing the boy's eyes widen, he continued, your scores were actually really close to passing, and me and Irika decided that you will be given an extra credit assignment that will allow you to pass. But he stopped the boy as Naruto looked about to scream out loud. This assignment will be set as a normal infiltration mission. You know how those are, right? Seeing the nod yes, he pulled out a slip of paper and finished. Good. On this slip of paper are the instructions and rules for it. All you have to do is make sure that you're not caught. Got it? Yep. And with that, Mizuki walked away with a dark smile on his face. Konoha Forest, 10:40 p.m. Naruto was sitting in a clearing, looking through a massive scroll almost the same size as himself. After he read the instructions Mizuki gave him, which were to infiltrate the Hokage office and get the forbidden scroll, bring it to a certain point in the forest, and learn one jutsu from it before Mizuki found him. Now, he would normally think about this kind of thing, especially since it was coming from someone that felt wrong. He was desperate to graduate with his friends, so he did it without a second thought. And although he had some trouble with the Umbu still in the office when he entered, as well as the Hokage walking in as well, a quick Oiroke no Jutsu and a couple of nosebleed fountains later, he was able to get the scroll and leave. He had spent the last hour working on one jutsu, which he completed, and was now just reading the last bit of information for it. Retained the memories of clones. Warning: massive chakra consumption, and it is recommended to not go beyond chakra limit, or user runs the risk of extreme chakra exhaustion, which could lead to death. Naruto was writing this down on a little notebook that he kept in his jacket, meant for writing tips on plant/flower care. After putting the notebook back into his pocket, he sat down with the scroll rolled back up on his lap and was going to take a small breather before his sensei arrived. He didn't get the chance as he heard his name being called. Naruto. Naruto turned his head to see it was Irika calling him and got up from his sitting position with the scroll falling off him. Hey Irika-sensei, you made it, and I was able to learn the one jutsu need to pass the assignment. Irika, hearing this, was extremely confused hearing that Naruto learned a jutsu, and began to look at the boy and the surrounding area. Naruto looked tired and his clothing was covered in leaves, sticks, and dirt, and the surrounding area had the trees with some scuff marks and broken branches, and a lot of the grass seemed flat and like someone was wrestling around. Naruto, what are you talking about? What assignment? The extra credit assignment so I could graduate, Naruto said with excitement and some confusion, as it seemed that Irika didn't know what he was talking about. Original anger dissipating. Naruto, there isn't any. He stopped when he heard something flying through the air before he tackled Naruto to the ground as a large shuriken flew over them. After making sure that they were safe, Irika looked back to see it was Mizuki standing on a tree branch, looking down on them. Nice dodge, Irika, and for saving the demon brat, he said in a condescending tone. Mizuki, what the hell do you think you're doing? Irika shouting at Mizuki. As both Irika and Naruto got up, Naruto looked in between the two. What's going on, Mizuki-sensei? I thought you said that both of you made this test for me to graduate? Hearing this, and after thinking of how Naruto wouldn't ever go against the village, he started to put the pieces together even if he didn't like the idea. Mizuki, did you trick Naruto into stealing the forbidden scroll? Mizuki just laughed at Irika before turning to Naruto. I was planning on messing with him to get him to doubt Irika and look guilty, but for what he did to me in that exam room, I'll just kill him. But first, Mizuki thought before he threw some kunai at Irika, forcing him to jump away to avoid them further away from Naruto. Pulling out a kunai to defend himself, he yelled at Naruto, Naruto, you need to get out of here with the scroll. Mizuki lied to you. There is no extra credit assignment. It was all a ruse. Naruto, turning to Irika, couldn't believe what he heard. So Mizuki-sensei lied. There is no way for me to graduate. Why did I listen to him then? Why did I listen to him if he felt so wrong? With a dark smirk, He looked at the boy. Hey Naruto, want to know why the villagers hate you so much? Getting the boy to turn to him, he continued, didn't you ever wonder why everyone called you a monster and demon brat? Iruka hearing this panicked. Mizuki, no, it's forbidden to speak of this. Shut up, Iruka. You see, 12 years ago the demon fox Kyuubi attacked the village and killed everyone including Iruka's parents, he said, looking at Iruka who had his eyes wide. And the fourth Hokage went to fight the demon, but he didn't kill the fox, he weakened it, and used some seal to make it look like a human baby, and guess who that baby was? Naruto stood there, eyes wide open and processing everything he just heard, and was piecing what Mizuki was saying. No, it can't be. Mizuki, seeing the look in the boy's eyes, started to pull the large shuriken off his back. That's right, it was you. You are the nine-tailed fox that killed everyone that day. Naruto was in shock. That's why I'm a monster. Seeing the boy in shock and unresponsive, Mizuki tossed the large shuriken. Die, demon. Iruka saw this and made a move to save Naruto until he felt a kunai hit him in the leg, making him collapse onto the ground. No, you don't, Iruka, ha ha ha. Iruka looked up just in time to see the large shuriken impact in Naruto in the center of his chest. Naruto. Mizuki laughing maniacally, landing onto the ground. Good, the demon is dead, and now that he is out of the way, I can deal with you. With this, I can just say that the demon killed you and I finished it off. After I give the forbidden scroll to Orochimaru-sama's spy, he will surely grant me power and status when I abandon this worthless village and join him. Naruto sat there on his knees with both his hands dangling on his sides and head looking down at the shuriken that was stabbed in his chest with a far-off look and light fading from his eyes as tears rolled down his cheeks. So I am the Kyuubi. I killed all those people. It must be why I like to run on all fours, why my favorite henge is a three-tailed fox, and why everyone hated me. But why? He lifted one hand to the shuriken. Why is it that Hokage keeps treating me nicely? Why does he always encourage me to look past the hate and the glares to see the good in the villagers? He lifted the other hand to join his. First, I don't want to die. I don't want to leave the people I care about. I am Ino, Hinata, Shikamaru, Choji, Shino, Kiba, Gigi. Iruka-sensei, how can I say sorry for what I did if I die? He lifted his head and through darkening vision he saw Iruka at the mercy of Mizuki, who kept beating on Iruka. And oh, Iruka-sensei, I have to save him from Mizuki. He's the one that caused this. He's the one that's hurting Iruka. It's his fault that Iruka is hurt, and he is about to pay. Mizuki had been beating on Iruka for a few minutes now. I always hated you, Iruka. Always getting attention from everyone when you didn't even do anything worth the praise. Iruka was trying his best to block the hits, but with his leg injured his movements were sluggish and sloppy. He kept up his defense until he tripped and fell back onto a tree and slid down tired from blood loss. You talk like I was stealing it from you when all I did was do my job, he said through heavy breathing and glared at his former friend. You think you will be able to get away with this? You think Orochimaru will give you power? If anything, you're nothing but a pawn to him. Ha, with what Orochimaru-sama's spy told me and everything I gave him, I'm guaranteed power, and now that the brat is dead I will receive even more praise and power, Mizuki said as he pulled out another kunai and lifted it over his head to finish off Iruka. He never got the chance to swing as he was launched extremely hard into a tree, hitting it hard enough to break a few of his ribs, and him losing the air in his lungs and sliding down slowly on the tree. His sliding was stopped by a hand gripping hard on his throat and brought up a bit. Opening his eyes, he was shocked to see Naruto with eyes so white they were glowing, and behind him on the ground was the shuriken with one of the blades slowly dissolving. Feeling the grip on his throat tightening, he grabbed another kunai and cut the arm as he spoke, though it was barely heard. Let go of me, you fucking demon. Looking at the cut he gave, he was shocked to see that the skin around the cut started to peel off, showing dark red and black energy underneath, and looking at the demon's face he saw the same thing happen to it as well. Looking to his left where the two were, Iruka was shocked seeing Naruto slam Mizuki into a tree, but was even more shocked when he saw his skin start to peel off and red chakra started to swirl around the boy as well as burn his orange jacket and shirt. Iruka then saw through holes in his burning cloths a seal glowing brightly on his lower back. But isn't the seal supposed to be on his stomach? He began to panic when he saw that the seal looked like it was fading as well, like it was being burnt from the edges. The seal continued to burn and Iruka saw changes happening to Naruto, such as his ears being replaced with long fox ears in the same spot, ears on the side of his head in the same place as his normal ears, not on top of his head, and out of his tailbone came 3 long foxtails, but soon the center tail began to get covered in the red and black energy. The skin on Naruto's arms and legs peeled off, showing the energy as well, with Naruto's nails elongating and his legs becoming like hind legs. Mizuki began to scream as the skin of Naruto's hand peeled off and he came into contact with the energy which burned like slow-acting acid. Mizuki looked at Naruto's face that had all of its skin peeled off, revealing a black face with his mouth replaced with a wide row of sharp-looking teeth made with the same red and black energy, with bright white light coming from within and the eye holes with the same white light still showing a look of anger, and the energy flowing into strand of the blonde hair. You were going to kill Iruka-sensei. It spoke in a deep, deep voice that sounded more like growls than speech, shocking both of the ninja. You were going to kill one of the few people that showed me kindness. You were going to betray the village as well, and all for your own selfish reasons. It lifted its other claw and shoved it into Mizuki's shoulder, causing him to give a silent scream since the burning on his throat causing him to lose ability to speak. With the burning on his throat, his hands as he tried to pry off Naruto's arm, and now his shoulder which was burning from the inside. With all the pain he was going through, he began to wish for death just to stop the pain, and as the hand in his shoulder was pulled out, and he was released from the hand around his neck, he finally lost consciousness and dropped to the floor with massive burn marks on the afflicted areas. "You're not worth it, you scum," Naruto said as he looked at the fallen form of the traitor. "Naruto?" Hearing his name, Naruto turned to Iruka and with sadness in his eyes, he said, "Iruka-sensei, I'm sorry." Before he collapsed to the ground unconscious and laid on his side with his back facing Iruka. Iruka just looked shocked at what he just saw. He looked at the boy's back and saw Seal, which was on Naruto's normal skin, finally burn away, and with it gone Naruto was engulfed in a ball of red energy, and then a large puff of smoke, and in Naruto's place was a fox the same size as Naruto, but it looked a bit different to Naruto's henge. The fox still had 3 tails, but all 4 of his paws and the tips of his tails were black with a bit of yellow fur in between where the black and red fur were to meet, and black stripe connecting the top of his middle tail going up his back all the way to the base of his neck before splitting off to meet with the black that encircles his eyes. Iruka just stared at the fox until a few minutes later an Umbu squad led by Anko landed in the clearing. "Iruka, where's the Gaki?" Anko yelled in a worried tone. Iruka just pointed to the fox. Anko, looking toward where Iruka pointed, saw the burned orange jumpsuit and ran to it, and stopped when she got to her knees next to it, and was shocked, and in a soft voice she asked, "What happened to him?" Some of the Umbu looked weary of the unconscious fox until they heard someone speak. "Umbu, calm yourselves," spoke the Hokage as he walked to the clearing and looked around at everything with his eyes lingering on Naruto, and without taking his eyes off the fox he spoke, "Iruka, what happened here?" Iruka spent the next few minutes giving a short version of what happened but made sure to say that Naruto was still Naruto. Hearing this, the Hokage gave his orders: "Umbu, detain Mizuki and prep him for a Ibiki, and I want one of you to take the scroll back to my office and guard it, another is to take Iruka to the hospital." And Anko turned her head as she had gently picked up Naruto. "You will be taking Naruto to the same hospital as I will have Hana come in to examine him since she is friends with the boy and I believe she is trustworthy enough for this, but bring him in an empty room as to have some privacy for what must be discussed." With a nod, Anko got up with Naruto in her arms and began to walk in the direction of the village. Everyone followed their orders and Hiruzen was the last one left in the clearing. "It seems it's time to come clean with this," to Naruto, and with that final thought he left the clearing. Deep in darkness, a low growl was heard as an eye opened up to see Naruto laying on the ground. "Kit,